followed by the American Sportsman. The following is a special presentation of ABC Sports.
It's a beautiful southern day. We're located just off of the Peach Blossom Trail, south of Atlanta, at Atlanta International Raceway. Here, 40 of the top stock car drivers in the world are ready for the fourth race of this new decade. Live, it's the Atlanta 500. It's a beautiful day today. Fresh air, blue skies, nice temperatures, but it hasn't always been that way. Friday and Saturday, it was wet in Georgia. Rain, 6 inches of rainfall, strong thunderstorms, and of course the rain caused some flooding. Lakes and streams sent out of their banks, and that sent fans and crews here at Atlanta International looking for any shelter they could find. And it washed out the qualifications here. So today's lineup was determined by the car owners' points, the race winners, and the entry postmarks. Now, that's bad luck for drivers like Greg Sachs and A.J. Foyt. They won't start today, but Dale Earnhardt, a 5-time Atlanta winner, is on the pole, and right now he's with Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, the last time these Winston Cup cars ran here in Atlanta was 4 months ago, and this man, Dale Earnhardt, was totally dominant. In fact, he was so dominant, he embarrassed most of the other competitors. They went to work during the winter trying to build new cars to come here to Atlanta and have a shot at running this guy. Dale, the competitors lost a lot of sleep during the winter trying to build new cars to come here and race with you. Now, what'd you do with this car? This is the car you raced last November.
Well, we waxed it, I think. Cleaned it up a bit.
Is that all? The car is set and you waxed it, nothing else?
Well, I think they went through the wheel bearing and stuff, but she's ready. It drives really good.
They said they did everything in the car that you could do to a race car on the outside. They didn't change a thing inside the car. They left the same air in the tires, jokingly, of course, to run this race. Everyone expects this guy to set the pace early on. But there'll be a number of veteran drivers in the chase. And standing by with one of those veterans, the newest member of our ABC broadcast crew, Gary Gerald.
Thank you, Jerry. Just 3 rows behind Dale Earnhardt. Inside row number 4 is a man who calls this his home track. Bill Elliott lives about an hour's drive north of Atlanta. 3 times in the past, he's been a winner here on this racetrack. He also had the luxury of some testing back prior to the qualifications that were rained out. Bill, can you put any of that testing of the past couple of weeks to your advantage here this afternoon?
Not really, you know, because the racetracks changed so much. You come down here and cars run on it and actually put rubber in the racetrack, and it's hard to get that stimulation of a race. We'll come down here and try out a few things. But we changed a lot of things yesterday afternoon because they did run that race yesterday. We'll see how the track, I'm sure, will be different from when I ran here last week.
Elliott thinks that they're gambling just a bit with a change of the setup. As we get ready for the start of engines and the green flag, we go back upstairs to Paul Page.
Well, Elliott and Earnhardt are ready. Right now, 40 stock cars sit nice and quiet, ready for the start. That's going to change in just a few seconds. Let's go back to Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, here to give the command for the drivers is the Grand Marshal of this 31st Annual Atlanta 500, Mr. James G. O'Connor.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
racing here in Atlanta. Now there's other sports news underway in the world today in New York. The baseball owners and players are back meeting once again, and Roger Twibel is there. He'll keep track of all that, and should anything develop, we'll give you an update just as soon as it happens. For the time being, the focus is on stock car racing. We've got a great race in store for you in what has been really a quite unusual season. Now joining us here today is the 1984 winner of this race and the current race record holder, coming over from ESPN as their award-winning analyst. Here's our colleague Benny Parsons. Benny, what do you think? It's been a rough season.
It's been very strange. It started in Daytona when Dale Earnhardt dominated, and 1 mile from the start-finish line had a flat tire, and Derek Cope won his first Winston Cup race ever. We went to Richmond, Virginia. Mark Martin won. That wasn't too unusual, but NASCAR in a post-race inspection found he had a carburetor spacer that was a half-inch too high. They found him $40,000 and 46 points. I mean, that's like hanging a guy for shoplifting. We go to Rockingham, North Carolina, and for a year now, NASCAR has a program. If you sit on the pole and win the race, you win $7,600 bonus. If you don't, it carries over. For a year, no one has done it. It amounted to $228,000. Kyle Petty qualified first, finished first, took up the bonus, $228,000. What's unusual about that? Paul, he never won a pole position before in his life.
So 3 races, 3 unusual victories. If that isn't an ingredient for excitement, I don't know what is. Now, Bobby Unser, this track, 500 miles here, is really tough to get around. You got to know what you're doing.
Well, it is, Paul. And one of the reasons why this is a 1 1/2 mile, high banked, perfect shaped oval. And another thing, the NASCAR doesn't require restrictor plates here, which means the engines produce about 650 horsepower, some of them even a little bit more. Now, that means that this is about the 3rd fastest track on the entire NASCAR circuit. 175 mile an hour a lap average per car around the track. 190 down the straightaways. Now, there was no qualifying, obviously, because of the rain. So the cars are going to be kind of mixed up throughout the field, the fast cars. So the start will be very different from that standpoint. Now, all of these things could make this one of the nicest races on the entire circuit this year.
And we are set to go racing as the field now begins to roll away. Let's take a look at the starting field. On the pole, Dale Earnhardt, who won his first superspeedway race here in 1980. To the outside of the first row, Rusty Wallace in 27, the defending NASCAR champion. The second row on the inside is Morgan Shepherd. He beat Dale Earnhardt in a really combative duel back here at the 1986 Atlanta 500. To the outside is Ricky Rudd, who won the 1987 Atlanta 500 in a late race showdown with none other than Benny Parsons. The third row on the inside is Kyle Petty, who won that $294,000 just 2 weeks ago at Rockingham. To the outside, Jimmy Spencer, short track modified driver, making the grade now in the big leagues. The fourth row on the inside is Bill Elliott, hometown Georgia boy. He's won 3 races here. And to the outside is Darrell Waltrip, 3-time national champion. He is the defending champion. He won this race 1 year ago. In the fifth row is Sterling Marlin, second-generation driver, looking for his first victory. And to the outside of number 5 is Jeff Bodine, making his 4th start with the legendary team owner Junior Johnson. We look through the field now. Starting back in 22nd place, you bet, that's Buddy Baker, making a comeback now. And in the 14th row, Neil Bonnet and Davey Allison, the Alabama gang. Richard Petty, King Richard, starts in 32nd spot. And back toward the back of the field, Rob Moroso and Jack Pennington, they're contenders for Rookie of the Year honors. As the field rolls around here, this is what they're shooting at, 328 laps, 500 miles around this 1.522-mile high bank track. Waltrip, as we told you, the defending champion, and Benny Parsons has that race record at 144.9 miles an hour. Benny, it's a tough track.
It is a tough track. We see the front straightaway alongside the pits. All the cars will pit on the front straightaway. There is a wall between the front straightaway and the pits. We go down to turn 1 and 2. It's a half-mile long bank, 24 degrees. The back straightaway the same as the front, 1/4 mile long. Turns 3 and 4. Again, this is a half-mile long bank, 24 degrees. That means that the drivers are in a turn 1 mile and on a straightaway half-mile.
All right, so that's the circuit here. Handling will really pay off. The driver that can work his car around here, and of course, they have not had the time that they would have liked to be able to get this track set up for them. We look on board now. Mark Martin's car. Several views on this car over his shoulder. a rear view mirror view, and a bumper cam. On board with Richard Petty now. You look over his shoulder. Alan Kawicki to the inside there, and we've got a rear bumper cam mounted on his car. And this is Kawicki's car. Regular over-the-shoulder camera will give you this view as well. So we've got a number of good views to give you here in the Atlanta 500. Pace car now working number 4 begins to bring the field down. Those two black cars, Earnhardt to the inside, Wallace to the outside.
Green flag this time by Harold Kinder has it in hand, and it's green. We're racing.
They start underway with Rusty Wallace making a little move to the outside. Rudd pulls in, tucks in behind the front two runners, but Wallace and Earnhardt are side by side as they come through the second turn and begin to flatten out and head for the backstretch.
You notice going into turn 1, Paul, how tight Rusty Wallace came down to Dale Earnhardt. That was to keep Dale from trying to get out in the groove right away. A good, smart move for Rusty.
Front runners stay side by side. Rudd is tucked in there behind, and Morgan Shepherd pulled up to get alongside. But look at the two of these guys work around the track. It's like the pace lap all over again as they complete the lap in virtually a dead heat.
That is unbelievable. Rusty just will not let Earnhardt go.
They shuffle a bit now. That's Morgan Shepherd down on the inside. Rudd has dropped back, and Shepherd comes up and moves into second place as Wallace gets the back end loose there.
Exactly right. Jimmy Spencer drove up on the back of Rusty Wallace, took a little air off that rear spoiler, and Rusty, the back end went out quite a bit.
And that was Darrell Waldrop that poked his nose in there, the number 17 car as well that's running down on the inside.
And the more cars you have, the closer together, the harder the air is going to be on the guys that almost got Rusty loose enough to lose the car. So we can watch for that, especially in the early laps.
You know, Benny, that is a problem here. You really don't want to go through the corner side by side with somebody. The lower car is going to suffer.
The lower car is going to suffer because they need that air to lean against to keep the car stable. When there's a car outside of you, it is a problem.
Jimmy Spencer, Darrell Waltrip, Kyle Petty has moved in there in this fight, while out at the front of the field, it continues to be Earnhardt.
That 57 car, Jimmy Spencer, we talk about an unusual year. That car's been running very, very strong all year long. That's been quite a change this year. Jimmy Spencer in the 57 car.
Back at the front of the field, here is Dale Earnhardt, number 3. They worried about his dominance at Daytona. He dominated right down to about a mile from the finish and then fell out of that race. He is incredibly strong here. We wondered in the early going, would he try to jump out and take an early lead, or would he settle back? And I don't think the people that ever thought Earnhardt was going to settle back were correct, and he's proven it.
I don't know who told you that, but don't buy a used car from that guy.
Now, also another thing, Paul, we want to keep in mind that the racetrack is still somewhat green. It's had an ARCA race on it yesterday, and that's about all. So the drivers are going to be a little bit conservative at the early going, not maybe using all of the race that they can.
Fight for 4th place here as Darrell Waltrip tries to close up on the 57 car of Jimmy Spencer.
Well, they've been having a heck of a race. I watched Waltrip just a lap before.
And the yellow call comes out for this situation. Number 1 car, Terry Labonte, brings out the yellow. Looks like he had an engine let go going into 3.
Yes, the car was smoking badly going in turn 3, so I think he does have an engine problem. He goes down to his pit. It's kind of unusual because you would have thought he would drift it on into the garage area.
Well, apparently whatever it is, they think there may be an opportunity to work with it. Dale Earnhardt is still our leader. Under yellow, Morgan Shepherd moved up into 2nd place. We'll be back.
Have you driven a Ford lately? By Valvoline Motor Oil. People who know use Valvoline. By Levi's 505 and 506 jeans. And by John Deere. Nothing runs like a Deere.
We're back at Atlanta International, still under yellow. The cars working their way around the field, and let's take a look at what caused this situation for us. It happened on the 3rd lap of the run here. You're on board with Mark Martin right now, and if you look ahead, do you see that car move out to the left? That's the number 1 car of Terry Labonte, and that's the smoke he displayed.
Oh, how terrifying that is. Gary Gerald is with Terry Labonte. Gary?
Well, Benny, here's Terry Labonte, and I know this is obviously a moment of great disappointment for a former Winston Cup champion. Terry, what was the problem?
Well, I don't know. We started off there, and It seemed okay, and then it started shaking just a little bit, and I guess it broke a rod or something. I'm not sure.
Just a quick assessment. Nothing that could be fixed. No chance to get out and chase points or anything.
We're looking at it right now, but I don't think so. I think it's over for the day.
Thank you, Terry. Let's check in now with Jerry Punch on the pit. Jerry?
Well, Gary, we saw Rusty Wallace slipping and sliding early on those first couple laps. Let's check in with crew chief Barry Dotson and find out what the problem is. Barry is standing behind me on the wall talking to the car on a Raymond Beetle. Barry, what's the problem? The car looks a little bit slippery out there.
It is, Jerry. The racetrack's a little dirty just starting, and it's a little bit loose, but with about 15 minutes of practice, we didn't want to change that much. You know, I hate to see Terry Labonte have trouble. That gold car was running great yesterday afternoon, but we got a long way to go. We'll see what happens.
The temperature today, guys, has made a big difference to the crews. It is about 15 degrees warmer than it was yesterday, so a lot of guys are having trouble with the chassis setup here. They set up for a colder day. It's a lot warmer today. They're going to have some loose race cars early on.
So we continue under yellow. Dale Earnhardt is lined up right behind that pace car, and then Morgan Shepherd, who I think Benny Parsons is a man to watch here today. He's after all scored one of his 2 wins on this course, and he was looking good in practice.
And his car owner, Bud Moore, gets his cars get around this racetrack awfully well. When Ricky Rudd won the race here a couple of years ago, he was driving Bud Moore's car.
And you can see that Rusty Wallace is riding back in 3rd place, followed by the defending Atlanta 500 champion. That's Darrell Waltrip. So they're lined up behind the pace car. We should see a green shortly. Dave Marcus came into the pits under this yellow. Went in and out pretty quickly. The temperature changes, Bobby Unser and Benny. How much in today's modern stock car does the surface temperature of this track change the handling of that car?
Well, Paul, it isn't warm enough today to bother very much. The thing that's really different is that it's rained on this thing for almost a week now. And the track is really loose, and it hasn't been cleaned. These guys are not running where the ARCA cars ran yesterday. So they're going to have to clean their own groove out. And remember, when they did practice yesterday, they had mostly wet track to run on. 50% of the track was wet. So they didn't get their chassis adjusted perfectly.
I think that's exactly right. I think it'd probably take these guys probably a couple of hundred laps to get everything dialed in the way they want it.
A couple of guys that moved up just in those first 3 laps of green. Ernie Irvin moved up from 30th to 16th, and Kenny Schrader from 14th up to 9th. Pace car comes off. We're set to go once again. As the green comes out, and again it's Earnhardt, but now with Morgan Shepherd setting his sights on the rear bumper of Earnhardt's car. Rusty Wallace works down a little low on Shepherd, followed by Waltrip and Spencer.
Now remember, we saw just a bit ago how bad the air upset Rusty. Now he's going to wait till the track works down a little bit like we've been talking about, and then after that, when he comes in for pit stop, if it's necessary, his crew will start adjusting the car. But obviously we can see that Morgan Shepherd's not being affected too much right now.
Wow, look at that. He just pulls up on the back of Earnhardt. Now Earnhardt pulls away from him for about a car length, but Morgan Shepherd looking awfully strong in the early going.
Chevrolet and Ford battle at the front of the Atlanta 500. As Morgan Shepherd is showing some power that we have not seen from that car so far this year. But as you suggested, Benny, there's a team that really knows how to make a car win.
Exactly right. Bud Moore been around this sport since I think he's 2 days older than dirt.
One of the things you can watch, Paul, is that if we see a head-on coming like we did just a bit ago, right there, Morgan Shepherd, you can see his car is kind of leading the front end a little bit, like the NASCAR guys would say, and whereas you look at Rusty Wallace right behind him, he's a little bit pad on the loose side. So he may tighten up a little bit or have the crew tighten him up a little bit later on in the race.
Rusty Wallace begins to come in and tuck in behind Morgan Shepherd. Earnhardt still out in front in that black number 3 car. Shepherd in the number 15 machine has not fared as well as he would have liked this year. You know, we talked earlier with Dale Earnhardt about his disappointment following the Daytona 500.
That thing at Daytona happened. It was like when it first happened, it was unbelievable. And on the lap after we got the checkered flag and was riding around, we were coming to pits, I sat in the car and got my composure together, and I sort of just blocked it out of my mind like it didn't happen. And I'd get away from the racetrack and we'd go over to the house, and a few friends are over where we stayed at Spruce Creek, and he's sort of still blocking it out like, well, you know, we'll get them next time. Yes, all you can do is just, you know, say I was racing and go on. And Jody Davis, myself, and Hal Houston, my father-in-law, went out with a friend of ours down in the waterway, and got on his boat and went out in the waterway and anchored up and put the nets out and shrimped until 2:30 that morning. had a couple of cold beers and then thought about how things were and felt bad the next day. But as far as the way the race went, I felt bad about it. But we had some good shrimp.
I guess that's the best way to deal with that kind of defeat.
Now there's Dale Earnhardt out in the front a little bit, Paul, and I just thought I'd make note that he's getting a little bit far out, enough at least to where they're not going to pick up a draft on him. Now, at Atlanta, Benny and I were talking a little bit earlier, they don't get an awful lot of drafting here like they do at Daytona or Talladega, something like that. They do get a little bit of help, but you can't just run up on a guy from a draft here. But he is pulling away just a little bit. He's handling what we'd call perfect right now.
Dale Earnhardt out in front. Everybody else lined up single file. No contest in the top 5-6 positions right now. It's still Morgan Shepherd chasing him, though Rusty Wallace is beginning to close in, followed by Dale Earnhardt. We take a look back now to a fight for 7th place. There's Elliott running up high.
Sterling Marlin in the 94 car on the inside of Bill trying to take the position away, and there's our Daytona 500 winner Derek Cope behind those two watching the action.
The fight here is for 7th, and that's a dangerous position for Marlin. If he gets in and stays right alongside of Bill Elliott, then that takes away some of his aerodynamics to the right side. Boy, he cut it close there.
He did, and
Cope comes down inside.
They touched coming off that corner.
That was one of those deals, Benny, where he didn't have much choice. The air just kind of sucked him right out to the wall.
It did.
And normally on a big super speedway, a 2.5 miler, there's a little cushion of air there, isn't it, Benny, for the low side guy?
Well, there is, but not at this racetrack, particularly with that half-mile corner that just keeps on going forever and ever. The 42 car, that's Kyle Petty, the fellow who won the race in Rockingham last week, and Ernie Irvin in the Kodak car behind the 4 car behind Kyle Petty.
Remember, everybody, Paul, is looking to see what is Kyle Petty going to do here. He beat him at the last race so bad. Everybody's looking for short of a miracle here today from Kyle.
Well, Kyle Petty, though, is up handling one of the best the sport has to offer in Bill Elliott. And Ernie Irvin with a great race, started way back and is up running in the top 10 as well.
And this is Ernie's first race in that 4 car. My brother Phil was driving that car until a couple of weeks ago, and he was released. Ernie took over the ride and looks pretty good today.
He's looking super in that car. Cope sitting right in there behind Marlin. As Elliott seems to be running a pretty high line as he works his way around here. He'd really prefer to be down a bit lower, wouldn't he, Benny?
He would. Bill's drifting to the back. That's Brett Bodine in the green 26 going by. We see Mark Martin behind him, Bobby Hillen, all of them taking aim at Bill Elliott.
He's having problems. He's not handling so well, so he's up there trying to run on some green racetrack. And Benny, don't you think he might be able, or might be trying to clean off just a little bit of personal groove up there where nobody's running?
Well, I would think he's probably going up high, trying to get a groove worked out up there. That's exactly what he's doing, searching around the racetrack, trying to find the best way to run.
Now, we got to remember, Paul, a lot of these, or almost all these drivers have not been able to set up their cars perfectly. Now, Earnhardt, we know, came with a car that he ran last year, so he assumes it's perfect for the conditions and all, but a lot of them are just going to be probing through the race, trying to make them better.
Ricky Rudd having his problems. He started 4th, moved up to battle with the leaders on the first lap, and has now dropped all the way back into 20th place.
Derek Cope going by Jimmy Spencer, Ernie Irvin on the inside. Talking to the fellows in the garage here before the race, and they said Derek Cope in that 10, the Daytona 500 winner, was one of the fastest cars in practice yesterday afternoon.
So Cope now has 7th place. At the front of the field, it is Dale Earnhardt. He is being chased by Morgan Shepherd, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Bodine, and then Darrell Waltrip. We'll be back with more from the Atlanta 500. Back at the Atlanta 500, Dale Earnhardt continues to lead. He has begun working his way around some of the traffic cars. He just got around Jimmy Means as we take a look at the top 5 in this field. Morgan Shepherd has a firm lock on 2nd place and is trying to catch Earnhardt, but he's about 2.5 seconds back. One of the cars having a problem here seems to be that of Bill Elliott. He's been dropping steadily backwards. Let's get an update on that. Here's Jerry Punch.
They had a problem in the garage this morning, Paul. The three-time Atlanta winner had the rear end housing to be changed on the car. The complete rear end of the car had to be changed. They were one of the last cars to be pushed onto the starting grid. They said they had a vibration yesterday in the last practice session. They did not want to take a chance. They went back to Dawsonville, Georgia, only about 80 miles up the road from here in Atlanta. Got a new rear end housing, came back and changed it this morning. They are still not happy. The car ill handling. He has now dropped out of the top 10. Let's move up pit road to Gary Gerald.
Well, Jerry, if there's anything as an early optimism award in this 500-miler, it's got to go to this crew here. Ernie Irvin, in his first time in the Oldsmobile number 4, started 30th. He's in the top 10. I think he's running 7th at the moment. Tony Glover is his crew chief. He's looking right now to catch a time as Ernie goes by, and he's relaying that time now to his driver as he heads into turn 1. Tony, this is a terrific way to start this race. You've got to be delighted.
Yeah, we're pretty happy right now. We got a long way to go, though.
Are you in hopes? Do you think that you can get up and challenge the leaders without a pit stop?
Well, it's going to be hard to catch Dale. He's running awful strong.
All right, Tony Glover, they're optimistic early, but what a sensational run for Ernie Irvin in his first time in this car number 4, Paul.
Looking for his first victory, Ernie Irvin, and doing a nice job today. Back to Dale Earnhardt, by the way. Elliott has now dropped back to 14th place, while Ernie Irvin is, in fact, up in 7th.
On Bill Elliott, Paul, changing the rear end housing is something that the mechanics would prefer not to do. Of course, the driver also, because when you change that, you don't always get it back exactly. Sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment to get the car handling again. And of course, they've had no practice again because of all that rain.
Benny Parsons, this is a tough balance for Earnhardt, isn't it? I mean, he wants to lead. He knows his car is running away, but on the other hand, you don't want to run the car into the ground. You got to try and figure out what the pace is going to be.
Well, that's exactly what he's doing. He's running at a pace that is comfortable for him and a pace that he feels like that Chevrolet will stay together. And you'll notice that Earnhardt, when he goes in the corners, goes down low, almost to the white line, goes to the middle of the corner. His competitors, the fellows who aren't handling nearly as good as he is going up to the top of the racetrack. They're already up on the top of the racetrack trying to find the grip. Earnhardt's finding it on the bottom of the racetrack about any place he wants to.
He works his way around Mass. Look how nicely he gets around that track.
There goes Morgan Shepherd, the second place car, and we'll see how much higher he is than Earnhardt.
Earnhardt, I was noticing a while ago, especially when he passes Benny, he can just drive, like you said, any place. If he wants to run right up next to the gray stuff, he just goes up there. If he wants to diamond the racetrack, run high, down the white line, he just goes that way. So maybe bringing back last year's winning car with a smart move today.
And that car has not raced since last fall. It's been sitting, as Jerry Punch mentioned, it's been sitting in the garage just waiting for this race.
Now, you don't think that's going to set up a trend where all these guys are going to start having just a specialized NASCAR Atlanta car, do you?
Well, they'll have 17 cars, one for every racetrack.
Earnhardt averaging nearly 167 miles an hour on the high banks here at Atlanta International, and he's almost now 4 seconds out in front of the second place car of Morgan Shepherd. They're pretty well lined up on the track. No one in contest at this moment. Earnhardt followed by Shepherd, then Jeff Bodine, then Rusty Wallace, then Kenny Schrader. Let's go down now to Earnhardt's pits. Here's Gary Punch.
Well, you mentioned Paul Earnhardt running some great laps here early on at Atlanta, but it's a long day here, 328 laps. Richard Childress, are you concerned about the pace your driver is setting early? Is he pushing the car too hard?
No, he's running his own pace right now. He just told me to let him know how hard he needed to go, and we're watching a couple other cars. 25's running good, 11 cars running good. We're keeping our eye on them.
Richard Childress pretty comfortable with the pace they're running right now, and there's Chevrolet. They are keeping an eye on one driver, and that is Jeff Bodine, moving toward the front of the car number 11. Childress just ready to Earnhardt says, hey, Bodine's coming, so you let him move away a little bit.
And of course, we only have to go back exactly 1 month. And remember Richard Childress's face at Daytona when this car did exactly this all the way down to about the 499th mile.
Yeah, that's right. This looks like Daytona all over again because his car was certainly this strong in Daytona, but he didn't win. Derek Cope won.
No, but it's another good thing to keep in mind, too, though, Benny and Paul, is that if you lead enough laps, sooner or later you're going to win a few races.
Well, sooner or later he's going to win. There's no doubt about it.
Ernie Irvin moves up now, gets around Darrell Waltrip and picks up 6th place. This is the closest fight on the track now, and still this spectacular run by Ernie Irvin as he threads his way up through the field. He's having a wonderful day in that machine.
Well, he sure is, Paul. But as you look at Darrell Waltrip there, you know that he's one of the smartest guys that race in this entire circuit. Darrell is thinking. He's not worried about leading this race. He's looking more at winning it. So he has some sort of a game plan.
He's been a guy that recently has scored more than a few victories by economizing both the car and the gasoline in the early going. Won the Daytona 500 doing that. Is fuel on his mind today?
I don't think fuel at this point of the race is not on his mind, but just being there for the last 100 laps of the race, that's what's on Darrell Waltrip's mind right now. Not leading the race, because obviously he doesn't have a car that's capable of leading the race, so he just back there riding.
35 laps are now complete. Jimmy Spencer jumped into the pits with 4 tires and some fuel, lost 2 laps with a 26-second stop. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
You talk about the run that Ernie Irvan is having right now. You remember, he is the driver for this race only. I talked to Larry McClure, the car owner for the car, and they would like to be able to have Ernie in the car for the remainder of the year. But nothing is set as yet. And to drive that car for the remainder of the year, given the purse, the winnings, and the salary to drive the car, we're talking about $1 million. So what you're seeing today from Ernie Irvan is a $1 million, possibly a $1 million performance. There are at least 4 other drivers, Winston Cup veterans, who have called and want that ride starting at Darlington in a couple of weeks. Ernie has to keep it. It's up to him to do it today.
And look at this. Ernie Irvan pulls up inside Rusty Wallace. It's a fight now for 5th place. Wallace currently occupies it. But Ernie Irvan is there and knocking. It's a real show-me ride for him.
It really is. And look, he's trying once again. He just drives up on the inside of Rusty Wallace. But there's the Ken Reagan car in front. I don't know if he's going to be. He does get by.
Let's see if he can hold the place now. As Benny mentioned, that's Reagan in that bright green car.
He's really handling good, Paul. You can just watch it. Doesn't make any difference where he goes. Plus, the air is not bothering him off of the other cars. Ernie Irvan's got a good car today.
Yeah, you just take a look at that machine and see how stable it sits on the track. Other cars, you'll see a little up and down in the front or the rear bumper, but you take a look at, like Dale Earnhardt's car, and now this number 4 of Irvan. It's just sitting right there like a stable platform. Let's go back up to the front of the field. This is the fight for 3rd place. Jeff Bodine trying to hold off Ken Schrader. Fight for 3rd. Earnhardt still leads it. Morgan Shepherd still in 2nd. But this battle's closing down on Shepherd.
Schrader has passed several cars to get up behind Jeff Bodine. Looks inside Bodine, starts to look inside, decides to follow him through the corner.
Ken Schrader is probably the most versatile, active driver that we have in the whole United States today. That guy, for example, will drive a midget, a sprint car, a champ dirt car, a NASCAR stock car, a super modified, anything that there is.
And it does a very good job in doing it. Look, he just passed Bodine for 3rd spot.
So Schrader now is in 3rd. Bodine drops back to 4th. Schrader was upset with the rain here because he said he could have driven a couple midgets. Maybe, who knows?
He was going to run Hickory, North Carolina, Friday night in a midget, a 100-lap midget event.
And you have to admire a guy that loves racing that much, because he was telling me how much he really hated to miss the midget races.
One versatile driver, Kenny Schrader, now running in 3rd place. You know, the beautiful weather that they have here now certainly belies what we've seen the past couple of days down here. That storm system that swept through the southeastern United States really got Atlanta. And some of the lakes and streams around the track here are completely swollen. In fact, a little creek runs through the track. There's a pedestrian bridge over it, and both ends of that pedestrian bridge are underwater.
And yet it's still cool enough to have a beautiful race today. The fans are just enjoying this because it's shirt sleeve weather and yet no humidity. It's nice and dry.
Lilacs are in bloom around the track. Beautiful day here in Georgia, just south of Atlanta.
There's Darrell Waltrip. He has caught Rusty Wallace and trying to get by. This is for 6th spot. Darrell looks on the inside of Rusty. Tries to make a pass down the front straightaway. Not able to make it this time. Falls in behind, and he'll try on the bottom of the racetrack down in 1 and 2.
Darrell's tucked right in there, positioned to make the move as they come onto the backside, coming off of 2. Waltrip comes down, catches the clean air, and they start their drag race down the backstretch.
I think we noticed very early on, that Rusty was loose in the back end. His car's a little bit loose, and therefore he'll go a little bit high on the track. If they're going to go by, he'll want him to go by underneath, because the car underneath will help hold him onto the track. So he's got a problem right now.
Coming past Wallace, Waltrip picks up 6th place. Waltrip, the defending champion here in the Atlanta 500. Out in front of this field, it's still Dale Earnhardt. Morgan Shepherd, nice drive. Still in 2nd place. Kenny Schrader is 3rd. Back at the Atlanta 500, the number 3 car, that black machine of Dale Earnhardt, still out in front, running away with this race, a full 6 seconds ahead of the fight for second place. But in the last few seconds, Ken Schrader got around Morgan Shepherd and picked up second position. Shepherd drops back to third place, and it now looks like we can see a good run here by Schrader as he sets sight on Earnhardt.
And look at Jeff Bodine. He comes in the picture. He's closed up on the back of Morgan Shepherd.
Well, it just kind of shows some of the guys are getting the track sorted out. The track is getting clean. Their cars are starting to come into the racetrack, or in some cases, the racetrack is coming back to some of the cars.
So the battle begins to focus around second, third, fourth position. Earnhardt continues to run away with this. Good shot of the white and green machine of Kenny Schrader. Maybe that green on there, he'll pick up a little luck of the Irish on the St. Patrick's weekend. Bill Elliott still having his problems, running now down in 14th place. Let's check on that story again. Here's Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, the Elliott car is handling very poorly, but one piece of equipment they have on board his car that no one else has today is an onboard computer of sorts. Now, David Kriska is the electrical engineer that works with the Elliott Racing team. What he's installed aboard that Ford is basically this infrared sensor here that shoots each tire, both front tires and both rear tires, and runs back the tire temperature to this box mounted in the cockpit where Elliott can watch it. Now you see right front, right rear, left front. Elliott can sit and watch the tire temperatures so they know what major adjustments they have to make on the racetrack. This should be a big help in getting Elliott back up to speed when we get a yellow flag or a pit stop later on.
Well, if he gets back there, he's got a long way to cover. He's now 23 seconds back from the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Well, now, if those tire temperatures, we can believe what it shows on that telemetry gauge right there now, Paul. It's not very hot. 300 degrees or 290 degrees there really isn't very hot. But it shows that the car's not gripping really good. Wouldn't you agree, Benny? It shows it sliding too much.
Well, I think the whole car is sliding across the racetrack because, as we see, all four tires was equal. But Bobby, on a stock car, 300 degrees is marginal. You know, I'm concerned that they're running that hard, that high. 275 degrees is about all we ever see on
But doesn't that just show that the car is slipping and sliding? Yeah. Because what I'm getting at, if they get a hold, Benny, the tire temperature goes way down.
That's right.
Jeff Bodine now making a move on Morgan Shepherd in a fight for third place. He came down to the inside coming off of Ford, began to challenge. Now he's set up for this run into turn one. They come through one. Shepherd is forced up high, and Bodine works his way past Shepherd, picks up third place.
And he did it very easy. Jeff Bodine looking pretty strong this afternoon, but Ken Schrader, and let's don't forget about Dale Earnhardt. What'd you say, a 6-second lead a little bit ago?
And growing every lap they turn. So Bodine, his new team this year, performing very well. You get a glimpse of Ernie Irvin closing in behind Morgan Shepherd as well, as Earnhardt just moved around Ricky Rudd. He's really flying his way up through this field. Though Rudd has not been running quite as well as I think he would have liked. He dropped back very quickly right after the start of this run.
Still puts him down a lap, and that's kind of like a bad deal in a race this long, getting down a lap so early.
Boy, it just takes all the fight out of you, Buck, because you go in there, you feel all that optimism, and you're a lap down. It takes a lot out of you. Jeff Bodine is passed by Morgan Shepherd, and as you mentioned a moment ago, Ernie Irvin behind Morgan.
Well, there's some other pretty tall fellows that are a lap down by this point. Dick Trickle is down a lap, as is Rick Wilson. Rob Moroso, Buddy Baker trying to make a comeback is running a lap down. They all have joined Ricky Rudd as Earnhardt cruises his way past them and continues just a dominating lead here.
We see Jeff Bodine, the 57 car, Jimmy Spencer. Jimmy was in the pits a little bit ago, so he is at least one lap down to this group of automobiles.
Now, Jeff Bodine is a Charger. Here we have Jeff going. He's a Charger. Now, he's with a new team this year, Junior Johnson team. And I was talking to Junior a couple of days ago. He says, hey, I think I have me a good race driver this year.
Rusty Wallace heads for the pits. We'll also see whether or not they're going to make any adjustments to the chassis on that car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Wallace, Paul, has to hit the brakes hard as he gets stopped on the mark. They immediately go to work on the right side. The car is loose, whether it's tires or whether they'll make a wedge change. And now on the back, we see that they are making a wedge change on the suspension, hoping to get better control. It's about a 14.5-second pit stop as we go to Jerry Punch.
The leader, Dale Earnhardt, brings his Chevrolet down pit road. The crew will make a 4-tire change. They are going to leave no questions unanswered. They feel the car is strong enough to catch up, and they lose a little time in the pits. They have now changed right side tires. David Smith scampers around the left side of the car. We'll change left side tires. Kurt Shelburne puts the left front on. Will Lynn the left rear. The car has been fueled. It's off the jacks. Down the way, a great pit stop by the Earnhardt crew.
22 seconds in and out for Dale Earnhardt as he takes on 4 tires. Benny, did you see anything else? I didn't see any obvious changes on the car. They seem pretty satisfied.
I would say they're pretty satisfied, and they could change the car with tires if they were going to make a change. And there is Ken Schrader. He just went by Dale Earnhardt, so that means that Earnhardt is 2 laps down. That is quite a gamble that Earnhardt's crew took in changing 4 tires this early in the race.
Long stop for a 1.5-mile track. That's a whale of a gamble.
The biggest gamble, of course, Paul, would be if for some reason or other the racetrack went yellow right now, some sort of an accident, really would put Dale Earnhardt in a bad position. And this is, of course, what Schrader is gambling on.
Kenny Schrader, for the moment, has the lead. We have only had 1 yellow in this race. That was in the early going when Terry Labonte blew an engine on the 4th lap. So it's been a fairly clean race. Everybody's tucked in nice and neat. We've also seen a lot of single file running on this thing. Let's go down to Gary Gerald again.
Paul, just a quick audio update. Morgan Shepherd came in. They took on fuel. Right side tires only, 14.65 seconds. No suspension change for Shepherd. They're apparently happy with the way he's working early.
We watch Schrader and anticipate a stop by him. We're coming up on the 60th lap. How far do you think he can carry?
He might can go 65 laps, but I would think that would be stretching it all any more than 65 laps. And let's face it, his tires are worn. He needs tires. It's going to be amazing what kind of strategy that Richard Broom and that crew uses. Are they going to change 4 tires, or will they change 2? If they do, they're going to have quite an advantage on Earnhardt.
Well, he's keeping it out, getting straighter, while most of the rest of the field making routine stops. Kulwicki is in. Bonnet has been in and out. Most of the front runners have been in and out of the pits. Kenny Schrader, the only one still out there, and he's still being chased by Jeff Bodine.
And he has more than just an advantage of looking for the yellow flag too, Paul, because he's also had the advantage of looking to see what the other guys changed on their cars. For example, like Benny said, left sides and right side tires. It's going to give him a decision on what to do.
He's coming in. He's coming in the pits. He's entering pit road right now.
Now let's see whether he changes both sides tires or just one side.
Oh, here comes the leader, Kenny Schrader. Jerry Punch is there, keeping an eye on it as the car rolls in for a stop, and some pretty quick for Jerry Punch.
Crew Chief Richard Broom holds the pit board up, signifying where Schrader will bring his Chevrolet aluminum to a halt. The crew now going to work on the right side of the car. You hear Schrader now revving the motor. He does not want to stall it on pit road and lose valuable time. They have put 1 can of fuel in. They clean the windshield. It will be only a 2-tire change. They are finishing the fueling in the car, holding the car to the last ounce of fuel in the car. He is down and away. Good pit stop here by the Schrader crew.
With a 15-second stop for Kenny Schrader, 2 tires being changed on that car. They decided they wanted to get her out and back into the action as fast as they could.
And we saw Jeff Bodine go by in the 11 car. He now is the leader of this race. He has not pitted yet. There's Bodine coming off turn 2. He's yet to pit. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of strategy he will use.
Jeff Bodine, if your estimates are correct, then Bodine is probably somewhere within 3 or 4 laps of when he has to make a stop as well. And that should throw the lead over to Darrell Waltrip, who currently runs in 2nd place behind Bodine. The Johnson car takes another lap, cruising down the straightaway and looking pretty solid as well.
Yeah, but Paul, they won't be able to stay out much longer because there's no car can get an awful lot longer or better mileage than the other cars do, so he'll be in pretty quick, or the remainder of them will be.
And we talked about Dale Earnhardt and what a gamble he took when he changed 4 tires. If all the cars have to pit before the caution flag should come out, then Earnhardt would have a tremendous advantage because he has 4 tires. All the other competitors, 2 tires. Here comes Bodine in pit road.
Bodine on the pit road now. Begins to go down on the brakes and pick up fast service as he rolls up toward Jerry Punch.
Jeff Bodine, having never won here at Atlanta, 2nd twice. His best finish, he would like to improve on it today. He will change tires, but more importantly, Junior Johnson now making a major chassis adjustment in the left rear of the car. They have put 1 can of fuel in, 2nd can going in, and he is down and away. Right side tires and fuel only for Bodine.
Whoa, what a stop. A little over 12 seconds for Jeff Bodine.
It also makes you wonder whether they got all the fuel in or not, Paul.
So Jeff Bodine, the leader of the race, makes his stop. We'll be back. Back in Atlanta with that round of stops, Dale Earnhardt comes back to the lead of the race. They just cycled him right on through, putting Earnhardt back in front once again. He's looking strong, has been throughout the race. Bobby Unser looks about 7 seconds out in front.
He really is. In fact, he could afford to have changed the left side tires in that thing, or a four-tire stop, Paul, because he's handling so good. Just watch him as he goes around the racetrack. It's almost like he was on rails. He's just really working exceptionally good.
Not having nearly that day. You saw him at the top of our show. Is this car, the number 9 Ford of Bill Elliott. He's got his problems. Let's check and see if they're able to cure any of them and go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, the man who calls the shots, is team manager Ernie Elliott on the wall. After the changes, have you been able to improve handling? Are you running better now?
No, we're still about like we were. Just, we've not got a handle on it yet.
This being 500 miles, you got a lot of opportunities to chase it this afternoon. Do you think you've got time to get back in the hunt?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's a real problem right now. It may turn into one, but we're just trying to make adjustments as he calls them and just try to make the car better as we go along.
Thank you, Ernie. Ernie Elliott calling the shots for Bill Elliott, hoping it gets better. Let's check in now with Jerry Punch.
Well, likewise, Rusty Wallace having his trouble early on, and they have made some adjustments on his car. Let's check in with Barry Dodson and see. Barry, what all did you do with the car during the pit stop?
We closed the rear stagger a little bit. We took some wedge out. We need to do more than that, but we can't do it until we get a caution. It takes too much time.
The car just too tight for you?
No, it's too loose. We took the wedge out to get it to turn better, tighten the stagger up to make it stick. What it is, we need to make more changes. We can't do that until we get the time.
A lot of teams struggling as a result of the weather this week. They did not have adequate practice, we mentioned earlier, and they are seeing the results of that today.
Benny Parsons, expand on that a little bit. The wedge, in and out. What are they really doing?
Well, they're changing the bite of the car, how the left rear, how the tires grip the racetrack. By changing the chassis, they can make this left rear, right front grip more, grip less. When they change the stagger of the car, they can do exactly the same thing. What they said, that they took some wedge out of the car. They loosened the car up a little bit so it would turn better in the middle of the turn, because he was having trouble getting it to turn. But he was also having trouble getting off the corner by spinning the tires. They changed the rear stagger on the tires to get him off the corner.
You can see, as you saw the top 5 there, that Morgan Shepherd seemed to be the loser in that round of stops as he dropped down into 5th place.
But Paul, as we mentioned earlier, all of these guys, or not all of them, obviously Earnhardt's hooked up really going well, but most of the cars are going to chase chassis settings all day, and it's all because of that rain last week. All of that's going to help make this race really neat, because these guys are really going to have to hunt and grind to try to find something that's going to make them handle as good as Earnhardt today.
You're looking back at the leader from Richard Petty's onboard camera mounted in his bumper, and just that quick, Earnhardt's out of the picture as he comes down trying to get to the inside. We take a look across and expect to see Earnhardt just any second here. He had to slow down for some slower traffic just ahead. Now he makes his move to the inside of Petty. Gives you an idea of the speed here. Looking down to the inside there, you just see as Earnhardt starts to get a fender alongside as he comes up to pass Richard Petty, who's running down in the field. Petty doesn't make it easy for him. Earnhardt's really got a dial to get through that one.
He does. He makes a nice pass, but you're right. King Richard made him struggle.
The onboard camera doesn't show the track quite as steep as it is. Benny and I were talking yesterday about how the track is really a lot steeper than what it looks like in the camera.
Richard Petty's got that mask on. He does that because, Benny, he said that he thought that the fumes from the other cars were bothering him.
Yes, he has a carbon monoxide problem. We see him with his hand on the steering wheel there. He's talking to the crew now. He pushes the button down and talks to the crew, but the mask is to try to get some better air to breathe, because he does have a problem with, as I said, carbon monoxide.
All right, you look here. This is out the front of Richard Petty's car. You see he's got a tint over on the right side of the windshield. Now, that kind of thinking here could really make a difference, because the sun gets into their face as we get to the last laps of this race. How many guys make this kind of planning?
Well, not too many, because as a driver behind Richard Petty, Paul, you hate this shot, because you see how dark it is looking through the windshield. When you're a race car driver behind Richard Petty, you can't see anything, and you're dependent upon looking through his windshield to see what's up in front.
So you're actually not just looking at the car in front of you, you're looking way down the road.
You're looking through his rear window, through his windshield, down the road, and you can see you can't do it to Richard Petty's car. I always hated that windshield.
And often, another thing that's kind of a downfall on that is that dark glass or dark sunglasses cause you, with the track being black, not to be able to see oil spillage on the track. I'm sure they used to notice that, Benny.
So you ride with the famous 43 car, Richard Petty. Spectacular views. Richard Petty, there's the leader of the race. Dale Earnhardt, Bodine a second. Schrader is in third. We'll return with more ABC's coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this message and a word from our ABC station.
The Atlanta 500. Brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Radios, the best-selling performance radios in the world. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you.
The Atlanta 500 thunders on. Dale Earnhardt is the leader, and he's averaging 148.08 miles an hour. If he keeps that up, he's going to shatter Benny Parsons' race record here. Jeff Bodine runs in second, followed by Schrader. Ernie Irvan started in 30th, was able to work his way up to the front of the field. There's the fight back with Kenny Schrader and Ernie Irvan. It's a fight for third place. One yellow flag when Terry Labonte blew his engine early in the race, but other than that, it's been a smooth and a very fast run. Let's go to Gary Terrell.
Paul, Richard Grooms, the team manager for Kenny Schrader. You're holding on to third. The adjustment you made in the pit stop, has it helped you?
Well, yeah, it's helped some, but the car's still loose. I think we can get it tightened up. We'll be okay.
You've got Ernie Irvan closing on you hard right now. Pretty good battle shaping up for that spot. Does that concern you?
Well, Ernie's running real good, and I figure it'll be a fight there at the end.
Does the pace that Earnhardt is setting concern you at this point, the fact that he's been so dominant out front?
Well, no, he run like that here last fall. I figured he'd run like that today.
You just hope that maybe something happens that'll get you in that spot.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, Richard Broom, the team manager. Still a lot of time, so there's still a lot of optimism, Paul.
Ernie Irvan stretches back just a little bit now as we take a look at that number 25 Chevrolet of Kenny Schrader. But Ernie Irvan's got that Olds working pretty good today. He's really giving that car a nice ride.
He is. He was up on the back bumper of Ken Schrader a moment ago. Now he's fell back 10 or 15 car lengths. I don't know if he's having a problem or Schrader has picked up the speed or found a better groove around the racetrack.
I saw you looking down there. Didn't seem like there was any traffic that they were messing with.
You know, that's the thing the driver loves about this racetrack is it is so wide and the corners are so long that the driver can make a huge difference here. He can look around and find a better way around the racetrack and make his car go faster. You know, the crew doesn't have to change anything. The driver can change his style and pick up speed.
You know, that's especially so today when you think about it because of the fact that they have had very little practice time, very little opportunity to set up the car. What we're seeing here today is for the most part driver skill.
Exactly.
84 laps complete. It's been Earnhardt most of the way. He only dropped out of the lead when he made his stop for 4 tires. Took a very long 28-second stop, but it's paid off, put him back in front. As we said, his average speed has been terrific. He is well above the race record here held by Benny Parsons set back in 1984. Race record of 144 miles an hour.
And notice, Paul, only one car has fallen out of the race so far. Now that's really something.
Bill Elliott still hasn't been able to solve his problems. In fact, Earnhardt can now see the number 9 of Elliott ahead of him on the track because Elliott is only about 4 seconds ahead of Earnhardt and that close to being lapped.
And as Bobby Unser mentioned a moment ago, that's something that you don't want to do this early is get a lap down because it really and truly becomes an uphill struggle the rest of the way.
Earnhardt leads it. Jeff Bodine runs in second, followed by Schrader, then Ernie Irvan. Morgan Shepherd, who was up running in second for a while, has dropped back into 5th. Then the Daytona 500 winner, Derek Cope, runs in 6th place. Kyle Petty is in 7th. Rusty Wallace is 8th. Darrell Waltrip is 9th. And Davey Allison has moved up into 10th place.
Harry Ganson 11th, Sterling Marlin 12th, Alan Kowicki 13th, Bobby Hillin 14th, Bill Elliott 15th, and Mark Martin is the 16th place car. So Earnhardt, if he should pass Bill Elliott, would have only 14 cars in the lead lap with him.
Penny, with a track that is as challenging as Atlanta International Raceway is, would you want to run with somebody at this point in the race, or you just want to try and get your own pace and let it sort out on your own?
Well, you want to find your own pace, but you have to be concerned that your pace is fast enough to be up with a leader. Obviously, no one now can stay with Dale Earnhardt, so they're all concerned about their pace. It's too slow because this guy's driving away.
Well, Earnhardt out in front, but should we see a situation like the Daytona 500, we may be down to something like a photo finish. In that case, everybody's prepared. Let's check in with Jerry Punt.
Well, Paul, actually, it's not a photo finish. It may be a video finish. In the NFL, they have their version of instant replay. Likewise, here in NASCAR, they have their version. And what we have is Timmy Arp here sitting up in the scorer's booth. I'm in the infield. He has a very specialized camera here that's shooting across the start-finish line. Now, Timmy is watching every lap as they come by. See the car zipping by here in the start-finish line. That's also pit road here. If NASCAR has a problem with the finish of the race, a photo finish or a video finish, or even a caution flag, some guy saying, well, I wasn't passed by the leader, they radio down to Timmy Arp. He rolls the camera back here and will look at a car coming across the stripe. He'll bring the car across very, very slowly, one by one, and see which car was in front of which car on that lap. His word is final. Just like the NFL, instant replay guys, whatever Timmy says goes. So we have an instant replay official here in NASCAR.
I'd love to see it in use today, wouldn't you? Earnhardt running out in front right now. Anytime you can get a couple guys down, let's get 3 across the line at once. That'd be a nice little finish.
It'd be fantastic.
Well, we could have that now if they'll just run off, leave everybody. You know, for a while, Bodine was getting up to about 4 seconds. Only 4 seconds behind Earnhardt. Now Earnhardt stretched it out to about 6 seconds, Paul.
And there's Mark Martin, who won the race in Richmond, was fined the $40,000 that I was talking about to be lapped by Dale Earnhardt. But behind Dale Earnhardt, we'll see a shot just in a second of a green car. And that's Brett Bodine. You know, Dale Earnhardt has not driven away from Brett, who is back there just behind him. And so that means that either Brett's running awfully good or maybe Earnhardt slowed. There, we see the green car, how close he is to Earnhardt. He's been that way for about 10 laps now. So Earnhardt's either slowing down or Brett Bodine running awfully good.
Benny, I've been clocking Earnhardt, and he really hasn't slowed down. In fact, he's been keeping a gap. So I'm more trying to think that Bodine's picking up a little bit, or a whole bunch, really.
When you talk about Mark Martin, he had his fine, and they appealed it, but the appeal has been disallowed. The fine stands, the loss of points stands. What does that do? And that was just done day before yesterday. Is Mark Martin suffering maybe from that a little bit?
Well, I think he's suffering kind of mentally because people are viewing him as a cheater. And Paul, as I said a little bit ago, it's almost like hanging a guy for shoplifting. It was not that big a deal, but, you know, NASCAR said, look, we're going to stop this cheating. We're going to nip it in the bud. And a $40,000 fine is going to nip it in the bud.
On board with Mark Martin now. Earnhardt moves around, puts him a lap down. Earnhardt with just a Sunday afternoon drive through Georgia. Boy, it's looking good.
There goes Brett Bodine by as well. Bodine running awfully strong.
Yeah, but you got to remember now there's 2 Bodines. I think you might have got it confused on me a little bit.
Okay, you're right. That's Brett Bodine, the younger brother.
Brett Bodine's actually running in 17th place. The second place runner is Jeff Bodine. Bobby, we'll try and keep you just as straight as we can.
Well, I knew which one is which. I just was saying Bodine instead of the first names, and I wanted to straighten that out.
You know, there was quite a bit of changing in NASCAR over the winter, and we've talked about it, as I think everybody has this year. You look at a car that somebody's been in year after year after year and suddenly gets out of it, it takes a little while to reassociate the new car.
Is it exactly right? That green car up there is supposed to be Ricky Rudd, isn't it, Paul?
Exactly.
But it's Brett Bodine.
The important thing is that Bodine, Brett Bodine is going awfully fast right now, as you said, Benny. It's a shame that he lost so much early on because it looks like right now he could really have been a contender.
And there's Bill Elliott right in front of Bill Elliott Dale Earnhardt is Bill Elliott.
A little bit further up the screen, just one car ahead is Bill Elliott.
Betty, let's talk a little more about that fine for the car that we're actually riding in now, Mark Martin. It was concerning the way that the carburetor spacer between the carburetor and the intake manifold was actually attached into the engine.
Exactly. We see, folks, you see where it says carburetor spacer, all that piece can be is 2 inches. Mark Martin had one that was 2.5 inches. They were trying to raise the carburetor up a little bit to get it in the airstream a little bit better. I mean, it's no big deal. It may be 5 horsepower. I don't think it meant the difference in winning and losing, but it was an infraction. It was an infraction.
And ironically, Benny, am I correct in saying at some of the racetracks they could have welded the height in with a welder and it would have been legal. But because this one was bolted on and in a different racetrack, it became illegal.
At Daytona and Talladega, they can weld a spacer onto the intake manifold, but that's the only 2 racetracks that they can do that.
So it would have been easy just to have a spacer on the engine and not recognize that maybe the mechanic could have done it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You see Bill Elliott being squeezed up to the wall there. You know, we were able to talk with Mark Martin about this whole thing. That's Richard Petty coming up as well. Benny, you use the word cheat, and other people have relative to that. We ask him about that. We ask him what Mark Martin actually thinks, and the fact that they're using the word cheater.
So I had probably about a 7-year-old little girl come up to me and ask for my autograph, and she was real nice at Rockingham, and I signed her autograph and I handed it back to her, and she said, "I can't understand why you would cheat when you drive such a good car." And that's right. I mean, why would you? But anyway, I mean, what's done is done. The 40 grand's gone and the points are gone, and you know, she may be 20 years from now may say, "Well, I remember when Mark Martin cheated at Richmond and won the race." You know, there's nothing we can do about any of it. We have to go on. We have to face it straight on and move forward.
A great attitude. I think that the label bothers him more than the money.
Oh, it does. And I talked to Dick Beatty just before the race today, and I said, "Where did $40,000? Where'd that number come from?" He said, "I tell you what, the kid won $48,600. He spent $8,000 for tires. We figured his motel bill was $600. We let him buy the tires and the motel bill and took the rest of his money."
Well, you know, Benny, I'll bet you one thing. I'll bet you nobody else has a spacer that's too long from now on.
No, we'll see.
Nobody's going to want to pay $40,000 for shoplifting, as you said earlier.
So, in its own way, the fine got the job done. 102 laps complete. Earnhardt continues to dominate. Traffic, but out in front, the Chevrolet of Dale Earnhardt. It's Jeff Bodine's Ford that's back in second place right now. Let's go to the pits. Jerry Punch.
An interested spectator here in the Earnhardt pits is a fellow who's a very good friend of Dale Earnhardt. He has mixed emotions. He would like to be here, but he'd like to be somewhere else, possibly spring training in baseball. We're talking about Chicago Cubs catcher, now with the Atlanta Braves, Jody Davis. And Jody, you and Earnhardt are pretty good buddies here, but you're here watching him race today.
Yeah, we get to spend a lot of time in the winter together, deer hunting. And, you know, we're out of job right now, so I'm having a good time following Dale around.
I guess the fly in the ointment is the salary arbitration problem you have with the owners. Is there any movement at all?
Well, I understand that they're meeting right now in New York. You know, the latest proposals on the table, the Players Association meeting. We had a meeting yesterday, and I don't know what's come out of that meeting because I've been down here at the racetrack, but hopefully they'll get together in the next couple of days so we can get out of here.
You guys had a little bit of a wager last year. It said Earnhardt, for every win he got, you had to hit 2 home runs. Who won?
He won. I didn't play very well last year, but I've been working hard all winter, and I'm in pretty good shape. And the big thing right now is just getting the baseball players back down to Florida and get working out and getting this baseball season rolling.
Well, it's going to get busy here. Our Roger Twibel is standing by in New York to keep us updated on what's happening there with the baseball arbitration, and Earnhardt is getting ready to pit, fellas.
Dale Earnhardt, number 3 car. Bodine running in second place, Schrader right behind him. And Bodine comes down on the pit road in what would appear to me to be just a titch early, Benny Carson.
Dale Earnhardt comes in the pits. Jerry Punch is there. Is this early?
Well, no, actually, it's the scheduled pit stop, Benny. They want to make sure they check on the gas mileage of the car a little bit and make sure they check on the tire wear. Earnhardt's car now getting right side tires. They're cleaning the windshield. They have already changed right side tires. 1 can of fuel going in. Danny Myers the 2nd can in. And again, they will come around and change left side tires. Now, when Earnhardt won here in November, they had the same strategy. Every pit stop they could, they changed all 4 tires to make sure they did not have a tire problem. He is down and away. Another good pit stop here on the Earnhardt crew.
Terrific crew. Great stop for Dale Earnhardt. At lap 110, he went to 55 laps for the first stop, so he seems to be right on his game plan.
He is on his game plan, and you talk about a pit crew, and his team is called the Flying Aces, and they are some of the best. As a matter of fact, a lot of race car drivers go around the country signing autographs. His pit crew goes around the country signing autographs.
Just try to keep one thing in mind, though, with Dale, that he's a little bit ahead on the sequence. If he has a yellow flag come up again now, it could hurt him drastically because he's pitting earlier than a lot of the other cars that are still in the same lap.
The number 11 car, Jeff Bodine, picks up the lead as he comes across the stripe, being chased by Kenny Schrader, so Bodine is out in front. And with that stop, Earnhardt drops back into the field. Morgan Shepherd comes in the pits as well. as Bodine outrunning in front. By the way, Derek Cope had moved up as high as 6th, but he stopped just a few laps ago. They changed right side tires. Only took 11.9 seconds, but he fell a lap off the pace when he made that stop, counting his roll in and roll out into the pits. So Jeff Bodine, now when do we see him come in?
I don't know, but he lost Ken Schrader because he chose to come into the pits.
Schrader peeled off, came down into the pits. Ernie Irvan now moves up to 2nd as Schrader drops in. Kyle Petty runs in 3rd position, and there is Schrader making his stop.
Changing right sides, I still don't see anybody with a jack on the left side. And we're making a chassis adjustment. Mike Slattery back with a wrench, making a chassis. Yeah, they're
now
going around to the left side.
So Kenny Schrader, they're going to change under the green. All 4 tires on this machine.
Now what you can see when they turn that right rear, the way they were doing, Paul, is they're letting the right rear down or putting a little bit more bite into the left rear. So in other words, he was a little bit loose in the rear end, trying to get a little bit more bite.
You know, we often talk about the adjustments made to the race car during the pit stop. The crew could really make a big mistake there. I mean, if they just turn the wrong way or go too many turns, that car could be almost uncontrollable.
Oh, that's why that they have the radios, because they have to communicate each and every lap, because that's something they can't do is go the wrong way. It would be disastrous.
And besides that, the driver won't just give an order and have the guys do it. They'll repeat it back to the driver from the crew and tell him, repeat what he wanted.
Bill Elliott, still struggling, makes his stop. Still running down in 17th place.
We see him back on the left rear of his car, making a chassis adjustment. The jack goes around. They're changing 4 tires on Bill's car. 1 can of gas in. Mike Brandt with a gas can. Car is full.
22 seconds to stop for Elliott. They don't get that car working. They may change the windshield, the side doors, and the numbers before they get this thing over. He's really struggling to get in the battle.
There's not an awful lot of things that they can change that are heavy mechanical things. They have to just change the wedge a little bit in the cars. The stagger and the tires is the big factor, Paul. And I'm waiting to see, Benny, won't change in the rear spoiler just a little bit. When will they start bending those just a little bit?
Well, they probably will doing this. This is Kyle Petty making his pit stop.
He was in 3rd place as he rolled into the pits with the stops ahead of him.
Now he's getting nothing but tires and fuel right now. No chassis adjustments that we can see at the moment.
Kyle with 1 win already this season. And a new Rolls Royce as a result of that.
Oh, he killed the motor. Almost killed the engine trying to get started.
21 seconds for Kyle Petty, and Bodine stays out there.
And Jeff Bodine is still running around the race. Oh,
there's one.
Duke did it.
That makes you happy, doesn't it?
One of those North Carolina teams. Yes, sir.
Bodine puts another lap, continues to stay out.
Now he's just looking for that yellow flag.
In.
He's absolutely gambling, trying to hope that they have a yellow flag and he can absolutely put Earnhardt down a lap or 2, which he could have went yellow right now.
24 seconds to stop for Ernie Irvan. Remember, he started way back in 30th place. He's now up running with the front runners. And Bodine continues to be out there. He's really stretching this one out.
He really is.
Junior Johnson's strategy.
Well, the way Dale Earnhardt is running, that's about all he has, Bob, is to try to stay out and get Earnhardt a couple of laps down.
Well, isn't that exactly what we would all do? I mean, Junior Johnson's got to be as good an old fox as there ever was in motor racing, and it doesn't take too long to figure out he can't outrun Earnhardt the race going, so he's going to try to outsmart him.
He's going to try to outsmart him. He's just staying on the racetrack.
Rick Mast was not a contender at the front of the field, but he just pulled his car through the opening in the pit wall and back into the garage area. While Bodine continues to have it his way now. Dale Earnhardt, of course, dominated the early going of this race. If you've not heard the name Labonte mentioned too much, it's simply because he blew an engine right in the early going, was out of this race by lap number 4.
Short race for Labonte.
We talked about the Bodines a little bit ago. There's some brotherly love. Brett Bodine in the green car. Jeff Bodine, his older brother, in the red number 11. Going by, that was Rob Moroso, one of the rookie challengers we saw just leaving the pits as Jeff Bodine went by.
Now remember, Jeff is the one that's going fast. Brett is the one that's right in front of him. The green car. Here he comes into the pits now. Stretched it as long as they could.
So Bodine now brings his car down in for some quick service. He's taken this stop much further than most of the other front runners, and Gary Gerould is there waiting.
Well, we see him roll in, Paul. He hits the mark right on the nose. And how many times have we seen Junior Johnson prepared teams come up with such an excellent effort? Junior Johnson, whose cars have won at Atlanta 7 times, whose cars have won 127 times in his career. It's going to be fresh rubber all the way around for Jeff Bodine. They methodically go through the routine drill. They stayed out longer than anybody else. They didn't get the yellow they were hoping for. Now off the jacks and rolling in just under 24 seconds. Everything appeared to be routine. The chase continues. Bodine after Earnhardt.
Well, as Bodine came in, Richard Petty would have been the fellow to come up and take the lead, but Petty decided to come in as well, and his car stops in a pit before the start-finish line. So Petty not yet in the record books as a leader of the lap here. Jeff Bodine, there's Petty. Bodine's made his stop.
Well, he was ready for that.
29 seconds for Richard Petty. So the leaders have now made their second stops of the day. Dale Earnhardt is still the key factor.
Heard from
Back taking a look at Dale Earnhardt, who's picked up the lead of the race once again. Sterling Marlin picked it up for a couple of laps. Then he made his second pit stop of the day. And with the order shuffled once again, that gave the lead back to Dale Earnhardt as he motors his way around the track. Kenny Schrader running in third place right now. Let's get an update on him from Gary Gerald.
Oh, we monitored a radio report that said there was a vibration, a problem with one of the rear wheels. We checked with Richard Broom, who's the team manager. He stands on this stand under the umbrella calling the shots. He said they apparently lost some wheel weights. The vibration is a nuisance, but they're not going to bring him back in. They're leaving him on the track. He's just got to tough it out to try to protect third place. Paul?
Factors in that, Benny Parsons. It's going to be tough on the driver. It's going to tire him a little quicker. Also, it's going to wear the tires a bit.
It might wear the tires, but it's going to wear his mind out. That's the biggest concern, is because mentally he wonders what's going to break. If it's vibrating, that means it's got to be going. It's going to break. What is it? Am I going to hit the wall, or am I going to be out of the race? Those are the things that's going through Schrader's mind.
I wonder how they decided it was wheel weights.
That's the easiest thing to say, was wheel weights.
Good quick answer on the radio. Don't worry about it, Kenny. It's the wheel weights.
Exactly.
Now, the driver can tell. After they start shaking a certain way, Benny and I know they can tell.
And it probably is wheel weights, as a matter of fact. That is the most common vibration that a car has. Is wheel weights fly off because at 180, 90 miles an hour, they're just hammered on there. They just fly off.
And incidentally, sometimes that's what these drivers run over and puncture their tires. Now, at this particular track, they're running liners inside the tires. That means that there's really 2 tires on each tire. There's an inner tire that supposedly, if the outer one were to get a leak or blow out from a puncture, the inner one will hold them up in the air.
All right, let's get more from Gary Pudge.
Well, Paul, you know, I'm sitting here surrounded by a bunch of Goodyear Eagles, and we're not really seeing much tire wear. Goodyear's done their homework running the bias ply tires here at Atlanta. You may wonder, though, why so many drivers are changing 4 tires. It's basically a case of monkey see, monkey do, as one crew chief told me. Earnhardt is the quickest car here right now, changes 4 tires. In order to run with the car, it's already quicker and going to get even faster with 4 fresh tires. They're going to change 4 tires. That's why Jeff Bodine, Sterling Marlin, Kyle Petty, and the rest are having to come in and put 4 tires on as well. The tires aren't wearing, just that new tires are a little bit quicker, and Earnhardt, obviously the quickest car here on the track right now.
Now they're running here, Benny Parsons, with the bias ply tire. We're seeing the radial at some of the events this year. The bias ply, a lot of people are real comfortable with. It's a tire that they know. Can you do some comparison on the 2 tires?
The biggest change is we talk about these crews changing tires and changing staggers to adjust the car. With the bias ply that they're running today and they use in the Daytona 500, you can do that. The rest of the races at Richmond, Rockingham, and in Darlington, the next race, Goodyear is going to use a radial tire. You cannot change the stagger because it doesn't change. You can blow the tire up to 100 pounds. It does not grow like a bias ply tire. Which one do the fellows prefer? Probably right now the bias ply. 2 years from now, when they use exclusively radial, they would not want to go back to the bias ply.
Now, supposedly the advantage to the radial is that it'll accelerate and brake in a nice, straight, even line. Bobby Unser, the IndyCars, went through this whole thing a couple years ago. Are they satisfied now? How have they dealt with the stagger problem?
Well, they certainly are, Paul. All they do is just make some tires of a different size for the left side of the car where you can get the stagger that way. Call it just number 1, number 2, and number 3. usually Goodyear will always bring at least 2 tires to the racetrack besides their setup tire that they can get the stagger different on, so the guy get the different handling. And that's what the stock car guys will do too. It takes them a while to get used to it, because you got to remember, like Benny said, you really get used to the biased tire after you've done it all your life.
Everyone is afraid of the unknown. You know, we're all the same way.
Shades of the Daytona 500. Earnhardt with a 13-second lead over Derek Cope in 4th place now. These 2 cars were such a factor at the Daytona 500. And Derek Cope came from relative obscurity right up to the top of the headlines. Good ride at the Daytona 500 for Cope. He's having a pretty good day here as he runs now in 4th place and works his way around this track.
That winning Daytona's got to be a big morale booster for Derek Cope. He's obviously a good race driver. He's got a good car. I think everybody's just going to be working harder and more together on that team, bringing about what we know a team is.
Derek Cope has been able to take advantage of some of his notoriety to work on a project that he's really feeling very important right now. Jacobs Hope, an 800 number. This is a boy that turned up missing in Minnesota. They've been looking for him and been trying to help him. He's trying to draw attention just on all missing children with this. This shows there's a picture of Jacob. This just shows you too the compassion and interest that many of these drivers have in these kind of concerns.
Did not read it. I read about this story in the newspaper, and isn't the boy supposed to be thought to be in Florida or somewhere in the southeast?
Well, exactly. If that's the case, this is a good place to be showing this, because we're surely in the south.
I think another point too, you're using the whole rear deck of that car for what essentially is a charitable announcement. How much money could that mean that he's given away just to help that boy?
Well, for the year, you're probably talking about that space is worth $500,000. So it's worth $10,000, $15,000 this one race, particularly on the back of the Daytona 500 winner. You know, last December it wasn't worth much because Derek Cope was not a winner, but he's now won the Daytona 500. His value has increased substantially.
But his values hasn't changed. He's still willing to do it.
Exactly.
Just think how much it would be worth to the parents of that boy, though. That's where the real value would be.
There is no value. You're right, Don.
Perhaps some good can be done here, and Derek certainly hopes to call attention to the plight of missing children across the country. The Atlanta 500. Dale Earnhardt out in front. Bodine chases him, though it's a futile chase at the moment. Bodine's about 13 seconds back, then Kenny Schrader, and then this man, Derek Cope, runs in 4th place. Morgan Shepherd, who's been up as high as 2nd, runs in 5th right now. Ernie Irvin is in 6th, up from 30th place. Kyle Petty is in 7th, followed by Harry Gant, Davey Allison, Alan Kwiatkowski, and Rusty Wallace. Runs in 11th place. Rusty's really struggling with it today.
He is struggling. Then comes Sterling Marlin, Richard Petty, Bobby Hillin, Brett Bodine, Mark Martin, and talk about someone struggling, Bill Elliott back in about 16th spot.
Boy, that's an unusual place for him, but he's certainly missed on the car setup today. And of course, like we said earlier, they changed the housing on the rear end, Benny. Maybe that housing wasn't enough like the old housing came out and just caused the car not to handle so well.
Well, they're trying a new chassis setup here. They're running again, this is very technical stuff, and I kind of hate to get into it, but this car, number 3 car, is the rear steer chassis, which is the Ford type chassis. The steering linkage behind the spindles. Bill Elliott has always used that. More and more of the cars are going to the front steer, which is the General Motors type steering. Bill Elliott has a front steer here today that he's trying to get worked out. Obviously, he still has some work to do.
Why would you favor one over the other?
Well, I don't know. As a matter of fact, these guys, Dale Earnhardt is trying to work out a front steer car. In Richmond, they used a front steer car, almost won the race. What happens is with a front steer, you're able to put a bigger oil pan on the car. Basically, technically, what happens is you can put a bigger oil pan, therefore make a little more horsepower.
It remains static at the front of this field. Earnhardt is still the leader, followed by Jeff Bodine. We'll return with more of ABC's coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this message and a word from your ABC station. Atlanta International Raceway, the Atlanta 500, 145 laps are complete, 328 laps, the scheduled distance to make up 500 miles. Dale Earnhardt, like he did at the first race of the season, the Daytona 500, is out in front now, about 14 seconds out in front of the 2nd place car of Kenny Schrader. Then comes Bodine, the Daytona 500 winner Derek Cope, Ernie Irvin, Kyle Petty, Harry Gant, Davey Allison, Alan Kwiatkowski, and Brett Bodine round out the top 10. For the most part, everybody seems to be lined up nice and easy. Now, at the start of the race, this car, the 5 car of Ricky Rudd, was up in the front. owing to his owner's points. But boy, Benny, he started dropping back right from the get-go.
He has, and I think that the car has lost a cylinder or something, because we see him down on the inside of the racetrack with Rusty Wallace going by and another car going by on the end. That was Bill Elliott went by. It looks like he may be running on 7 cylinders or has some type of serious problem, because he's way off the pace. Rob Moroso goes by.
It's got to be in the engine too, Benny, because he's running too slow and he's going too straight for it to be in the chassis, and it's normally a very fast car.
Let's go down to the pits. Jerry Punch.
While we were away, Paul, he did make a pit stop and the car was sputtering and missing pretty badly. Let's find out what the problem is with Waddell Wilson, who's the engine builder and crew chief. Waddell, what's wrong with the car? Is there a problem with the car?
Yeah, it evidently dropped a valve, and you know, whether it's 1 or 2, I'm not sure. It's not running at all, so we're just going to have to ride it out, looks like.
They're going to ride it out and try to pick up as many points as possible, but certainly having a problem here today. Let's go up pit road to the Urban pit, where Gary Gerald is standing by.
Well, Jerry, we talked earlier how this young man, Ernie Irvin, driving the Oldsmobile, car number 4, started 30th, got up into the top 10. He's currently in 5th place. He's a veteran of the short tracks of Central California, and like so many grassroots drivers, he lives the big NASCAR dream. For inspiration, the guy who's right in front of him in 4th place, Derek Cope, from the short tracks around Spanaway, Washington, who earlier this year, of course, won at Daytona. So the dream lives. Irvin would like to write another chapter here in Atlanta today. Let's go up to the booth with Paul.
All right, so the update on several drivers here. By the way, word just comes to us from New York that they've taken a lunch break in the baseball negotiations. No progress yet being reported, but they are going to begin meeting as soon as the lunch break is concluded. Should anything develop, Roger Twyble is there for ABC Sports, and we'll bring you an instant report. Anything develops in baseball. Right now, the developments are stock car racing, NASCAR style. And there is Buddy Baker, trying to make a comeback.
Trying to make a comeback. That's him in the white number 90 being passed by Dale Earnhardt.
What do you think of that? A guy steps away for a little over a year, and you miss it, don't you?
Oh, you miss it tremendously. My advantage is when I quit driving a race car, we see the black car behind the Texaco car of Davey Allison. Behind Earnhardt, he has been lapped by Dale. You miss it terribly. My advantage is that I have something to do. I'm able to work for ABC, ESPN. I see the same people that I've seen for the last 20 years. Baker, when they lost their sponsor this year and their team went away, he didn't have anything to do around the racing business. So I can well understand why that he came back, just to be around.
Still very difficult to come back after laying off. A lot of people just don't realize how good a shape a driver really has to be in. Not meaning that Buddy is in bad shape, just means that he's not really hard like a race driver has to be. Muscles are not toned up like they need to be. So today he'll probably be a little bit sore by the time this race is over.
Buddy Baker circling around here. It's been 2 years since he's raced. We talked to him about his physical conditioning at the Atlanta 500 and how he thinks he'll do here.
It's going to take me a little bit of time. It'll be like a pitcher that laid off for, you know, a full season and then try to go back in and have a 20-game winning streak. You just don't do that. And I'm aware of that. I feel I'm very level-headed, and if it takes a race or two to you know, really get in condition and get your timing down like you need, then that's what it'll take.
But Buddy Baker is back. He's not running in the top 15, though, so I think he's probably wisely just trying to feel himself in the car out.
And like Bobby said, get himself back in racing trim. The car's in racing trim, but Buddy Baker needs to get the same way.
Get your feet back under you. Take a look at people that you may not have seen race yet.
Hey, when that guy was a little bit younger, he was one heck of a good race driver, I promise you.
154 laps are complete. We're coming up on the halfway in another 10 laps. And that makes for an interesting scenario because there's some money, Benny, coming up in about 10 laps, and that tends to sort out the way the front runs.
$10,000, and Earnhardt may even try to stretch a fuel stop if need be to win that $10,000. But I don't know that he will have to.
So 10 laps away, the halfway point, 250 miles. Dale Earnhardt is still the leader here at Atlanta. Dale Earnhardt still out in front, now with 159 laps complete, just 5 away from the $10,000 midway point. He's 11 seconds out in front of the second-place runner, the 25 car of Kenny Schrader. But we've been watching his relative position to the 10th place car of Davey Allison, just out of the picture to the right. And Benny, that's worrying you.
It is worrying me because he's not run off and left Davey Allison. There we see Davey Allison just about 6 or 8 car lengths behind him. And as a matter of fact, the lead, you said, is 11.7 seconds. It was 14 seconds a little bit ago. So Schrader is closing up on Dale Earnhardt. And there we see Schrader in the 25 car.
That's the second place car, Kenny Schrader. Jeff Bodine just back from him. But there is a question about Dale Earnhardt. We'll keep an eye on him. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
We can probably answer that question, Paul, and the reason being is this man behind me who's calculating the fuel mileage for Dale Earnhardt. Now they are looking at making a map here as he goes by lap. Right here, lap 164 is the halfway point. That little box on that lap, that's the lap Earnhardt has to pit for fuel unless he slows down, which is what he's doing right now. He's turned the wick down a little bit on the car. He will slow down, hopefully collect the $10,000 on this lap, and then pit 1 lap later if the gas holds out. They're rolling the dice a little bit early here for Dale Earnhardt.
Sounds like they're willing to gamble the win of the race against the halfway money.
Well, that's right, $10,000. Remember, at Daytona, he didn't win the $10,000 because he had to stop. Harry Gant made it. He won the $10,000.
Well, the $10,000 wouldn't be important if you could have to lose a race from it, but it doesn't look like he's going to have to lose it because of that.
Interesting gamble as he tries to stretch it out. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, another one of the interesting stories here at Atlanta pertains to a man who won here twice back in the 70s, Buddy Baker. He's back for the first time in over a year in a race car. He's driving for Junie Donlevy in the Ford number 90. Junie is one of these characters that's been around this sport for so many years. I know you're 4 laps down, but it's got to be good to have that veteran big guy sitting back in your seat.
Well, it feels pretty good, but Buddy's neck's hurting him pretty bad right at the moment. He promised us on the last pit stop that he was going to work pretty hard on that.
Any doubts in your mind that you'll be able to get back in races ahead and be a legitimate contender for a NASCAR victory again in the Winston Cup Series?
Well, I feel like that he would. It's just going to take a little time to get back in shape and get the feel of these cars again, but that's the reason we're letting him stay with that run right now. He'll know what muscles are aching tomorrow, so he'll know which ones to work on.
Indeed, he will. Thank you, Junie. You got a sore driver out there in the seat of number 90 right now, Paul.
All right, Dale Earnhardt comes across the line, 164 laps, picks up the money, and heads down for the pits. So they were able to stretch it out just the way they wanted to do it. Dale Earnhardt, his 3rd stop of the day, and here's Jerry Punch.
Well, they rolled the dice, and it worked out for them there. Now $10,000 victory, and they will get to make their pit stop as they had desired. Changing right side tires. We have left side tires ready. They have taken the lugs off the left side of the car. They are cleaning the windshield. Now David Smith scampers around to the left side. A high-speed ballet here in the pits at Earnhardt now. Getting 4 fresh tires, having led the majority of the early part of the race. The lug nuts are back on. His car's off the jack. It is down and away.
You see the view from the crew cam, how fast and how skillfully they work with those machines. Again, the 4-tire gamble on the green stop is taken by Richard Childress and his car, Dale Earnhardt.
Obviously, they're not changing the chassis, so he still feels his car's really good, Paul, and I guess we couldn't hardly argue it because he's been leading almost every lap.
Kenny Schrader picked up the lead as Earnhardt ducked into the pits. Bodine now moves up to 2nd, Cope up to 3rd with Earnhardt out, but of course Earnhardt's made a stop. These cars have not yet stopped. Nice little stretch there. Good play for him.
Yes, it sure was. Look, Schrader's coming in the pits.
So Schrader brings it down. Jeff Bodine should go into the lead as the stops begin now to cycle through.
Now that if everything goes to normal, Bodine will stay out a little bit longer than the rest. Remember, he is going along with Junior Johnson's plans of trying to find a yellow flag to gain that back a lap or gain a lap up on Earnhardt.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Kenny Schrader had to pull his car up a little bit from where he normally would pit because of the Brett Bodine's car sliding through the pits. They have now changed right side tires on Schrader's Chevrolet. Clean the windshield as Brett Bodine's car moves around, and Schrader will get 4 tires, as did Earnhardt. Remember, Earnhardt setting the pace here. He gets 4 tires. Everyone else must also. Schrader's car is down and away.
It's that great little camera mounted on Jerry Punch's headset. We got cameras everywhere this weekend. So Schrader goes back into the action. Bodine assumes the lead as we cycle through these stops. There's Jeff Bodine right now. Morgan Shepherd moves up into 2nd place. You can see they worked down Ricky Rudd's ailing car. Boy, he's not doing any good at all. I'm surprised they're still keeping it out.
All right. You're right. Exactly right, because they're going to stay after all the points they can possibly get. The attrition has been very, very low today.
And remember, that's Waddell Wilson's engine in there. One of the most famous engine builders in the country. Got to really embarrass him every time he hears that thing going by missing, but sometimes it just can't be helped. He's really a good man.
Surprisingly enough, we've run this race to 169 of the 328 laps with just one caution period, very short one, for 3 laps. And as a result of the lack of cautions and the blistering pace that Earnhardt has been setting, Benny, I'm sorry to tell you, your race record's looking in serious jeopardy here. Your record's sitting down there at 144.9 miles an hour. To this point, they're averaging 157.9.
What I'm concerned about, Paul Page, when this race ends about a half hour early, what are you and I going to talk about?
Well, you're going to give us a long dissertation on the state of NASCAR racing right now.
Richard Petty just scrubbed the wall a little bit as I was looking a little while ago. I got off my monitor. Here he comes into the pits now. Let's see if he had any damage from it. Just a light scrub on the wall, Paul.
He'll certainly take a good look at that car, Richard Petty, as he rolls down in. There you see the view from actually a camera mounted up in his dashboard.
There we see the mask that Richard has. They hand him a drink of water.
He doesn't seem too concerned about anything.
No. Hand him another damp towel.
He's worked himself up a good sweat, though, hasn't he, Benny?
He sure has.
Richard Petty was running 10th. They're working back on the right rear.
You can see the right side of the car. That's where he flat-sided the car up against the wall. I guess he hit it just a little harder than I thought, Paul.
Yeah, they're going in there with a fine adjustment rule. Large, some pretty expensive advertising off the side of that car. Last race that Richard led was here at Daytona, or here at Atlanta, 1 year ago.
The only thing he didn't hit right there was competition cams. Saved them.
You may notice that the car comes down off the jacks now. It didn't look like it got far enough inside to really affect the suspension on the back of the car at all, does it, Benny?
Well, the engine must have died and he can't get it started, or they're pushing it behind the wall. I really don't know what. They're going behind the wall to work on the car, it looks like.
Apparently that's it. So Richard Petty had a nice little run up in 10th place. Now they push it out of the way.
Doesn't look like
it's in the car, though. Let's go down to the pits. Here's Jerry Punch as Morgan Shepherd makes a stop.
Scheduled pit stop for Morgan Shepherd. Maybe one of the sleepers here. 2 tires only for Shepherd. His car is very, very tight, gentlemen. They feel if they get the car a little bit looser, it'll be much faster, and they think they may be able to run with Earnhardt as the day progresses a little later on. But 2 tire change there for Shepherd only.
Shepherd could certainly stay with him in the early laps. Shepherd's won here. Good chance he could do well today.
He sure could. I was kind of concerned about that liquid coming out of the right side of that car as he went out on the bottom side of the racetrack, the apron of the racetrack. Maybe it was just gasoline that had gotten in the trunk, but
could normally vent over there.
No, normally it's not a vent over there.
The vent really can't run to the right-hand side of the car, can it?
No, it can't.
No, I didn't think so.
Keep an eye on Morgan Shepherd's car. Jeff Bodine, again, Junior Johnson going to keep him out and stretch just as far as they can. The hope is for a yellow flag, a caution period, but we haven't seen much of that. Just one caution period so far today.
A good example of what could have happened, though, and I know we can't count those, but Richard Petty hitting the wall now. If Richard hit it a little bit harder and stopped, that yellow flag would have been exactly what Jeff Bodine and Junior Johnson have been looking for. Now, that's something we want to keep watching the rest of the day.
Talking about cautions, the fewest cautions here at the Atlanta 500. 2 back in 1961 and 2 in 1977. We're past the halfway point and only have 1 here today. We've got an amazingly safe race underway.
Sure have. We look at Rusty Wallace once again. He's pulled up on the back of Bodine. So evidently they've been adjusting the car and at least have the car better than it was earlier in the day.
Rob Moroso had his problems. Looked like the engine let go as he came around. Here's Ernie Irvan. As he makes his stop, he was running in 3rd before he came into the pits.
There's some confusion in the pits. I guess they're waiting on the gasoline the car to get full of fuel.
Well, Ernie Irvan was in 3rd, makes his stop. And Jeff Bodine stays out there. Kyle Petty with these stops has moved up into 2nd place on the racetrack. Earnhardt has made his stop, is back out and running in 3rd place. 27 car, of course, is Rusty Wallace, who is well off the pace here in Atlanta.
Exactly. He is a lap down. Now, if he could get by the 11 car and a caution flag come out, he'd be able to go all the way around the racetrack and basically make up a lap if he can just get by the 11. He realizes that, and that's one reason that he's trying so hard now to get in front of Jeff Bodine.
And here comes Kyle Petty in, so he'll drop out of second place into the pits. And when Bodine makes his stop, assuming that it runs on routine time, then Earnhardt would pick up the lead. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Kyle Petty, who was so dominant 2 weeks ago in Rockingham, in this same race car, comes into a scheduled pit stop, changing right side tires only. They were trying to fuel the car, made no chassis adjustment whatsoever, keeping the car revved up. Now fuel, he is down and away. Good pit stop for Kyle Petty's crew.
Had some problems with that right rear tire that time. I don't know if the lug nuts fell off the tire when they started to put it on or what, but some problems on the right rear of Kyle's car.
Nice new owner for him this year. Gave him a victory. Changed to Rolls Royce. Why don't you run through that scenario for us?
Well, Felix Sabatis, the owner of Kyle Petty's car, a businessman out of Charlotte, North Carolina, told Kyle that he had a 73 Rolls Royce, an antique Rolls Royce, that he would give him if A, he sat on the pole at Daytona, B, won a 125-mile qualifying race, or C, won the Daytona 500. He did neither. But he wanted to roll so badly that he went to Rockingham. Just prior to Rockingham, he went over and signed the papers, and they put the Rolls Royce in his name. And he agreed to pay Felix for it. After he won the race on Sunday and won Felix about $500,000. There the antique Rolls Royce is. After he won Felix about $500,000, he said, "What about the Rolls, boss?" He said, "You can have it." He gave it to him.
Pretty nice, Benny.
Enough, and you get a deal like that.
Kyle Petty is a good race driver. He needs a good team put together, and he'll win some more races this year.
Jeff Bodine continues to hold on to first place, staying way out. Plenty long, as a matter of fact. But they did that on the earlier stops, too. There's Bodine, the number 11 car.
Every time somebody pits, he just goes that much further without coming in. Pretty soon they're going to be in a sequence all their own. And Junior Jonathan's plan may end up working.
I mean, you're right. We're talking about right now, he is 17 laps in front of Dale Earnhardt in pitting. And they're talking about pitting maybe 3 or 4 laps from now. He would have a 20-lap advantage on Dale Earnhardt. That could be a pit stop before the day's over.
Well, if anybody knows the tactics of this kind of racing, it's certainly the team that Bodine signed on with for this year.
Junior's seen many, many races in his long career with Winston Cup Racing.
Well, he's a cunning man, too.
And besides that, the guy was one of the finest race drivers ever been in stock cars, so he knows it from both sides of the fence. He's won races, lost races, been one of the best team owners and managers that there is in all of NASCAR.
It's a move that quite certainly will pay off for Jeff Bodine. He continues to work that number 11 car around.
He's coming in this time.
There, he made the move down. Sometimes it's a little tough when you make that transition from the bank down into the pits. You don't want to wait until too late to jump in there. So Jeff Bodine comes in for a stop. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we look forward to the Junior Johnson crew in action. Here he is, and once again he hits it routinely. Everything looking good. They check right side, no indication of left side rubber just yet. They've had a tremendous run as far as fuel mileage is concerned. They're going to go down in just right side rubber only. He pulls away in 12.5 seconds.
And it's going to be a race coming out of the pits. Now Bodine is coming out slow. Earnhardt on the main straightaway. And Earnhardt, there he goes, past Bodine. Earnhardt picks the lead up once again as Bodine came off the pits particularly slow. Earnhardt back into the front of this field. The car continues to run without the slightest indication of a problem. So Dale Earnhardt, after the cycle of stops, once again comes into the lead. 185 laps complete. Dale Earnhardt is on his way to shattering the race record in the Atlanta 500. He's averaging 157.9 miles an hour, a full 13 miles an hour faster than Benny Parsons' record set back in 1984. 190 laps of the 328 are now complete. They've just cycled through another set of pit stops, and Earnhardt has reassumed the top position in this race. Back in the field, Kyle Petty is running in 8th place now, motoring his way around the track. He's already been a winner thus far this year. Let's go down to the pits. Jerry Punch.
We mentioned a few moments ago when Kyle Petty made a pit stop, they had a problem, Paul, with the right rear tire. Benny Parsons saw it up in the tower. We couldn't see it from the left side of the car. The problem they had was the lug nut they were taking off the tire with got caught inside the air wrench. In order to get this lug nut out, you have to reverse the air wrench, screw it back on the stud, and then bring it back off one more time. So finally, they got the lug nut to come out. It rolled away, and they were able to put the tire back on Kyle's car. But this little problem here cost Kyle about 6 extra seconds on pit road. Let's go up to Gary Gerald.
Well, Jerry, one of the teams that's having a struggle here today is that of the defending champion, Darrell Waltrip. Jeff Hammond, his crew chief. Jeff, what kind of problems have you been chasing all afternoon?
Basically, Gary, the car's been a little bit on the loose side. Been trying to get it to where the car's a little bit loose getting in and a little bit loose getting off, so we've been fighting that all day long. And the fact we haven't had too many caution flags has really hampered us really getting a chance to work on the car and keep it, in competitive, edge right now.
Was the lack of practice time because of the rain, did that hurt this situation or hurt you in this situation?
Well, it hasn't helped anything, but we were all of us were in the same boat. Some of us did a little better than others. Like right now, Dale has just been so dominant, doing so good. You just got to really you take your hats off to Richard Childers and his crew. We're off a little bit today. We get a couple of caution flags, we probably find our way back in here. If the car seems like it's got plenty of motor, Daryl's driving as hard as he can. We just need to work on it a little bit. Dale's perfect, and we're not, and that's where it's showing.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go back up to Paul Page.
Darrell Waltrip circles around this track, but Dale Earnhardt, Waltrip's the defending champion. Earnhardt is just blistering the track record here. He's averaging 157.9 miles an hour. He's been the dominant factor. The only time that he's come out of the lead was when he's ducked into the pits for his 3 pit stops thus far. It's been an incredibly fast race, incredibly safe. Only one caution period for 3 laps, lap number 6 through 9, when Terry Labonte blew an engine. We've also seen some unusual movements. Waltrip is one of them, not faring well. Neither is Bill Elliott. Part of that due to the fact that they have had rain here in the Atlanta area for the past several days. These cars had very little practice and no qualification. Bobby Hillen pulling up behind Earnhardt now. Not in contest for position, though. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. Jeff Bodine runs in second. Morgan Shepherd is in third. Ken Schrader is fourth. Derek Cope runs in fifth. I'm Paul Page with Benny Parsons, Bobby Hunter, Gary Gerald, and Jerry Punch. The Atlanta 500, we're past the halfway point. Earnhardt repeating what he did at Daytona. But let's not forget how Daytona ended. It ended without Earnhardt at the top of the order. He was the first guy to lose the race. Cope went on to win.
Yeah, the fellow down at the bottom of the standing order, Derek Cope, won the Daytona 500. Sixth place runner, Alan Kawicki. 7th, Harry Gant. 8th is Kyle Petty. 9th, Ernie Irvin. 10th, Davey Allison. Mark Martin is 11th. Sterling Marlin back in 13th, and Brett Bodine. Rusty Wallace. Bobby Hillen is 15th. Richard Petty. Darrell Waltrip. Dick Trickle. Neil Bunn and Bill Elliott back in 20th spot.
Derek Cope having a pretty good day today. He's running up in 5th, so he's still carrying some of that spirit of the Daytona 500 with him.
Now you notice, Paul, is as you watch Dale Earnhardt go around, right behind him is Bobby Hillen. Often when a race driver, there he is going underneath right now, and that's really quick. Often when a race driver gets passed by one of the real quicker cars, he finds a new and better groove around the track. This is what Hillen is doing, obviously what Darrell is doing right now also. Hillen, for example, his mechanic is Harry Hyde, one of my old mechanics when I ran the stock cars.
You can see there in the race summary after 192 laps, that blistering pace and 1 caution flag.
Look, 17, Darrell Waltrip going by Earnhardt. Could it be that Earnhardt has a problem? That's the first time Bobby Hillen passed Dale Earnhardt.
Look at him get high, too.
That's the first time we've seen him pass today.
So Earnhardt will have to keep an eye on him. In the meantime, we've had another driver in trouble. Let's get an update. Gary Punch.
Well, we're going to check with Dale Earnhardt just a moment. A little bit ago, Jeff Bodine had trouble leaving the pits. The car was very slow. We're with Tim Brewer. Tim, what was the problem with the car?
Well, Jerry, we came in for a normal 2-tire stop, but when the jack came down, he took off, and we only had 1 wheel pull him, which was a left rear. But by the time he pulled the thing into 2nd gear, he said it's going again. So he's off and trying to catch Earnhardt, and I think it's going to be a pretty good race for today's out.
There is a ratchet in the rear of these cars that allows both wheels to pull. Apparently, when you drop the car off the jack, sometimes the ratchet can come uncoupled, allowing only 1 wheel to pull. And that is why Bodine was so slow leaving the pits, but is running well now.
Paul? Benny Parsons on that last stop, too. Earnhardt again took 4 tires. Bodine took only 2. What about that as a tactic?
Well, that is strange. You'd think that Earnhardt would have a tremendous advantage. But, Paul, just a little bit ago, Earnhardt was 4.5 seconds in front of Jeff Bodine. If that camera could pan back right now, folks, he is 1.5 seconds behind Dale Earnhardt. See, there's Darrell Waltrip right behind. Well, we don't see him right yet, but the 11 car, Jeff Bodine, is gaining substantially on Earnhardt. So what is Earnhardt's problem? Or is Jeff Bodine found something? There, Jeff Bodine, look how close he is to Earnhardt.
So Bodine comes up into the fight. Waltrip is not a factor sitting in between them. Earnhardt is first. The 11 car is Bodine. He's running in second, and he's beginning to close. So we'll keep an eye on Earnhardt. There may be a problem. We'll return with more of ABC's coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
The Atlanta 500. Brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Goodyear Eagle Radios, the best-selling performance radios in the world.
Back at Atlanta International, and there are questions to be answered here. Is there a problem with the number 3 car, Dale Earnhardt at the wheel? You notice he's moved up to a higher line on the course. In doing so, Jeff Bodine has been able to close down and is now moving in contact with Earnhardt. At the same time, Morgan Shepherd, running in 3rd place, is closing in, and so is Kenny Schrader.
I'll tell you what looked to be a runaway by Dale Earnhardt all of a sudden has turned into be about a 4-car automobile, well, 5-car automobile race, because Derek Cope just isn't that far behind. The black car, Earnhardt. Then a couple of lap cars. There comes Jeff Bodine, and right behind him, Morgan Shepherd.
And the interval is now down to 1.8 seconds and closing as Bodine moves in. Shepherd moves in behind Bodine.
Boy, that's making a good race, Paul. I think what's happened is Earnhardt has probably had his tire change on him, or the track change, and not. Boy, that's a race. Look at that.
Wow.
And having the man, 4 abreast. Now that's really something to see 4 abreast.
Boy, it doesn't come any closer than that.
I'm starting to say that Dale's tires have probably changed in relationship to the racetrack, because he's running totally out against the gray. The highest of the high groove he's running right now, which means he's probably a little bit loose in the rear end, and he'll adjust it the next time they come in.
And Morgan Shepherd picks up 2nd place. Now he and Bodine can both let the breath out.
And wow. Don't you know they were holding their breath?
Oh,
what a move.
Boy,
how about the guys they were going by, though? What if they didn't look in the rearview mirrors and see that act coming on?
If they did, they just closed their eyes and hope they missed them. So Earnhardt leads, but boy, a great battle for 2nd place between Shepherd and Bodine, pulling them forward. We'll keep track of the interval between the battle for 2nd and Earnhardt. The one factor that lies between them is the Darrell Waltrip car, who is running off the pace. He's down in 12th place right now. It's not been a factor all day.
And Bobby Hillin also in front of Morgan Shepherd. But I think when Morgan pulls up behind those guys, that they'll see that he needs to get by, and they'll move over and let him go by.
Let's go down to the pits. Gary Gerald is in Earnhardt's pit.
Well, the man alongside is Richard Childress, who calls the shots. Obviously, there's a problem. What is it?
Well, this set of tires here, they're just a little bit looser. I guess the stagger opened up on them. We're going to make some changes on this next stop in just a few laps.
Now, you're going to keep him out, though, and let him tough it out until you get the next stop.
Yeah, our next scheduled stop is real shortly here. We're getting ready to do it now.
Now, the fact that you haven't had any yellows at all, you've been dominating early. Is that having any impact on this event in your mind?
Well, we just hadn't made any changes in the car. We're going to start having to make some now.
All right, so they'll start to chase the racetrack, trying to get some of that dominance now back.
Well, it's about time they went to work, Benny. That's going to put Dale even further out of the order, though.
Well, it is, because they're going to stop a little bit earlier. As he mentioned, they've got a problem. But he's not getting that good of fuel mileage. He can only run about 55 laps. He has to stop. Where Jeff Bodine, some of those other guys are running about 70 laps.
While we continue to wait and watch for Dale Earnhardt, let me give you an update on some other racing news this week. Scott Pruitt was testing his Indy car at the test circuit at West Palm Beach, driving for True Sports, when he was involved in an accident during that test. As a result of a lengthy extrication from the car, he was injured, taken to Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, where they're now reporting that he has fractured both of his heels, fractured his left ankle and foot, fractured his right kneecap and his left knee, and has compression fractures of 2 lower vertebrae. He was operated on at Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana by Dr. Terry Trammell. His condition is now being listed as fair, but no indication on what caused the accident during that test session, and no indication at all when Scott Pruitt may be back in action.
Now, as we watch all these guys coming behind Dale Earnhardt right now, Darrell Waltrip right there, for example, they're just about like a bunch of coyotes smelling some fresh meat. They want to get by him because if a yellow comes out, man, they're in line to win this race.
I'm Paul Page, Benny Parsons, Bobby Unser, Gary Gerald, and Jerry Punch. The race, the Atlanta 500, 213 laps are complete, and this man, the number 3 car, Dale Earnhardt, has dominated to this point, picking up an extra $10,000 for leading at the halfway point. We've had only one caution period for 3 laps, and that's brought the average speed of the race up to 158.4 miles an hour, a full 14 miles an hour faster than the race record held by Benny Parsons.
Do you have to keep bringing that up?
It just seems appropriate, Benny. It looks like your day on the record book here just may be over. But the question is, Earnhardt. He seems to be slowing down. We've just talked with Richard Childress, his owner, and they say that the tires aren't holding quite like they were, and they're going to have to make some changes now.
Ironically, the other cars are better, and he's a little bit worse. But if you'll notice, he's really running high, and the idea is to keep it so high the other cars can't get on the right-hand side of him, so they can jerk his rear end loose, because it's already loose, as we heard Richard Childress tell us a little while ago.
Looking at these other cars there, Earnhardt's followed by Waltrip, who's running in 12th place but trying to get back onto the leader lap. That 15 car is Morgan Shepherd, who just a few laps ago got around Jeff Bodine for 2nd place, and he is now up and challenging Earnhardt. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, Morgan Shepherd certainly would like to get a good shot at winning here, and what we're looking at right now is Bud Moore, the car owner of Morgan Shepherd, standing on the wall. Now, Bud Moore, one of the veteran car owners here in racing like Junior Johnson. Bud is 64 years of age. They call him Patton here in the garage area because he was a machine gunner in Patton's 3rd Army Division back in World War II. He runs the pits just like a general. Everything must be in its place, and he is going to be very proud of one of his troops right now, Morgan Shepherd, who is trying its best to pick up a win here at Atlanta.
So he watches his car running in 2nd place right now, and once Morgan got around Jeff Bodine, Bodine began to fade backwards. Waltrip down on the inside trying to find a position so he can get around Earnhardt and get back on the lead lap. Now Morgan Shepherd making a move down low on Earnhardt, trying to stay in contact with Earnhardt.
I think Waltrip's either going to have to get it up and try a little harder, try some different grooves to pass Earnhardt, or Shepherd's going to go on by him, and that's what Shepherd's trying on the bottom right now.
Good afternoon of sports here on ABC for you. Coming up right after the Atlanta 500, an old favorite returns, the American Sportsman, with host Kurt Gowdy, along with former NFL great Walter Payton and the Olympic gold medalist Matt Biondi. It's a 1-hour outdoor special. The American Sportsman. Earnhardt out in front, but take a look at Morgan Shepherd. He works down alongside Waltrip, trying to get in contact, and manages to do so. So now he's got clear space ahead to Earnhardt.
Now remember, that put Darrell Waltrip 2 laps down. Now the reason Darrell was getting such a hard time getting up there, Paul, is because that he had to get by Earnhardt, then he would have been back in with the capability of winning the race. But now that really put him down, so that should kill his spirit a little bit.
Well, he's got 2 positions to make up if he wants to get back with the leader.
Look at Morgan Shepherd. What is it? 3 car lengths to Dale Earnhardt. This has got to be the best run Morgan Shepherd has had in a long time. He has to be awfully excited now. Bud Moore, I know he's excited. Oh, look here, Earnhardt must be coming in the picture. He has a problem.
All right, we're watching Earnhardt. There goes Shepherd as he picks up the lead. Richard Childress told us that they'd be stopping the car, and they wanted to make some work and some changes on that car, so it won't be routine. They're ready for him, and Gary Gerald is there.
All right, Paul, we look up and we see that familiar number 3 coming in, hitting the mark. Darrell Earnhardt is in for full service. We anticipate it'll be fresh rubber all the way around. They had the problem in the handling on the last set. They've been the forerunner on all the pit stops today. And while they dominated early, the lead very much in jeopardy of late. Instead, it's just a 2-tire change in just under 15 seconds right side in fuel. Earnhardt is gone.
You see Will Lynn's point of view there as he worked on the right side rubber on that car. Earnhardt comes back into the action, but of course Shepherd picked up the lead. The question is, did the work that they did, especially there on the left rear as they started jacking it around, is that going to make a difference?
Now you could see, Paul, that they were turning the bolt down and he was loose. So they're putting a little bit of bite or a little bit of weight in the left rear.
And look at this. Here is Earnhardt and Shepard side by side. Earnhardt wants to get past him and stay on the lap. Can he do it? Shepard has been very strong. Look at Shepard now.
Earnhardt has the fresher tires on the right side. You would think you'd have an advantage, but the 21 car of Neil Bonnet is up there.
Now Shepard slides up high. He was powerful on the straightaway, but coming to the backstretch, Earnhardt gets around him.
Shepard just hasn't pitted yet. He just didn't have the grip in the turns. He just was sliding a little bit too much. Earnhardt with the right side tires spread certainly stuck a lot better.
Well, Morgan Shepard still has the lead of this thing now. Earnhardt's got a little work to come back up to the front. Of course, everyone else needs to stop. Let's get an update on Morgan Shepard's car. Here's Jerry Punch.
We talk about a gamble for Morgan Shepard and his crew. Well, they came here 2 weeks ago. They were the fastest car in testing prior to the Atlanta race. They built a brand new race car to come here and race. They took that car that ran the quickest laps here in testing back to the shop, and the car they brought here is not that car. The car they brought here is the car they raced at Daytona. Why? Well, they felt this car was their best aerodynamic car. They run so fast here, they wanted to bring the only car they've had that had a chance to get in the wind tunnel. Wind tunnel time is so important for a Winston Cup team. It's $2,000 an hour. They didn't have time to get the new car to the wind tunnel, so they brought this car here, figuring this car would be the car to win the race for them. And they may have figured right.
No brave gamble, but for the moment it's paying off. Morgan Shepard is out in front, and Dale Earnhardt really has to work to get back up to the front order. Shepard comes in for a pit stop. This on schedule for Shepard. As the crew goes to work, let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, it is actually a scheduled pit stop, but they're a little bit concerned here in the Shepard pit. The car is showing about 210 degrees on the water temperature gauge inside the cockpit of the car. They have rolled a big hose over to the wall in case they would have to use it. The car was showing a little bit of water coming out of the right side when it finished the floor. They have now changed for all 4 tires. He is down and away, but a little bit concerned here about the possible car beginning to heat up a little bit on the racetrack.
25-second stop. I'd be showing a little more than a little bit of concern. It's not that warm out there.
No, it isn't that warm. If he's running that hot, it could be a problem. There's a race for the lead now. 25 car Ken Schrader has passed Jeff Bodine in the 11 car and has taken the lead here in the Atlanta 500.
But remember, both of these cars due to stop, and what you really have to keep track of is Dale Earnhardt, because he's been running right on the game plan all day. Even his last stop, while they needed it, was right on the money.
And Morgan Shepard, don't forget him, Paul, because what happens today, it's a cool day, they'll block off some of the radiator. If these cars block the radiator and keep a little less air flowing into the hood, hey, that's speed for them. They go a little bit faster that way. I'm sure that's what Bud Moore was gambling on.
So you think he might have an opportunity to open up the coolers a little?
They could open them up a little bit, or he might have a little bit of screen on the front they could pull off if they had to.
Kenny Schrader's been playing it pretty smart, running in contact with the lead most of the day, and it's now forced him up to the top spot once again with Jeff Bodine and number 11 riding back in second, but they're right there. You may also notice Rusty Wallace is in there, but he hasn't performed well at all today.
And the car behind Rusty Wallace is the black car. The orange and white car behind is Derek Cope. This is the 3rd place car, so this is how close 1, 2, 3 is right now.
They're running tight here at Atlanta, the Atlanta 500, and they're running at a record pace, 158.4 miles an hour, and only 1 caution period, and that wasn't an accident or a wreck. That's just a blown engine from Terry Labonte.
And I stand corrected. Greg Fielding told me the 10 car made a pit stop just a moment ago, so he is a lap down to this car.
Drop back to 7th place right now. Top of the order, Schrader, followed by Jeff Bodine, Ernie Irvin, Kyle Petty, and Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt has made the stop. We would expect him to come back to the lead unless, of course, fighting with traffic, he falls too far back and has to work his way through traffic while everyone else gets the stop done. He could find himself in 2nd place.
Now there's Ken Schrader coming into the pits now, Paul. Time for them to get a little bit of fuel. He looks like he's normal, though.
So Kenny Schrader comes out of the lead, ready to pick up some quick service as well. Let's go to the pits. Here's Jerry Punch.
Well, Bobby Unser, you are correct. It is indeed a scheduled pit stop for Kenny Schrader. He brings the car to a halt, and they will change the left side tires, but more importantly, they will make a chassis adjustment on the right side of the car. Cheech Gardy has gone to the right side of the car and made a little bit of an adjustment in the right rear wedge. They have left side tires only on the car, no right side tires. They fuel the car, back second gear, and he is away.
Adjusted the right rear and out in 14.5 seconds.
Now what that means, I think, is they took a little bit of weight down on the right rear. It means to put a little bit more bite in the car, change the left side tire fault. So that means that they probably took a little stagger out of the tire. He was loose. Now he'll probably pick up the pace just a little bit more.
So Jeff Bodine picks up the lead, but he's due to stop as well. We cycle through. The focus continues to be on Earnhardt. Is he running fast enough now? Did they correct whatever problem they may have had for him to close in and reassume the lead once everyone else stops? Here's Bodine in for his stop as well.
Jeff Bodine coming down pit road with Junior and the guys right in front of him. Gary Gerald is there.
Simply amazed at the poise of Junior Johnson. He is totally unflappable on the near side, 1 foot on the wall as he calmly surveys a left side rubber change, and of course 2 of those 11-gallon tanks of fuel being added, 22 gallons total. He's gone in under 12 seconds. Terrific stop for the Johnson crew.
Oh, great stop.
And no changes, no chassis changes. Somebody's been doing something right on that car.
And good news for this guy, Ernie Irvan. He started in 30th. He's now got the lead of the race. So with those stops, Ernie Irvan moves up into the top in his Oldsmobile. Nice little ride. Of course, he's due for a stop as well very, very quickly. Irvan's first big splash came in 1987 at the Charlotte 500 when he finished 8th with a lightly geared car owned by Mark Reno at that time. Now he's up running in the front of the field, but we're still cycling through the stops.
He's been a factor all day. Ernie has just plain been fast all day, Paul.
This is incredible. We've come 235 laps with only one 3-lap caution period as Ernie Irvan heads down the pit road now. And Kyle Petty would be next in line to pick up the lead. And in fact, he does, because he stays out as Ernie Irvan comes in, and now Kyle Petty is leading the Atlanta 500. Second place is Dale Earnhardt, and Earnhardt is sitting about 5 seconds back, a couple of turns behind Petty.
You want to keep in mind that the racetrack is slippery now. They've laid down a lot of rubber, maybe a little bit of oil leaking from some of the cars, but mostly in the turns it's been the rubber. So the tire stagger by handling now is a lot more important than it was early. No more green racetrack. It's a slippery racetrack, and the groove, if you look in the turns, goes almost all the way to the wall.
15 seconds in and out for Ernie Irvan, the leader on the track, Kyle Petty. And back about 2 turns as Petty comes off of 2. Earnhardt is already maneuvering through 1 in second place, and Earnhardt should therefore be able to pick up the lead when Kyle Petty makes his stop.
He sure should, and he surely will. And Earnhardt's going to end up with about a straightaway lead on Jeff Bodine, the second place car, when all this stuff shakes out. And the real loser in this situation is Morgan Shepherd, who ran so well. Caught. There comes Kyle Petty in the pits in the Pete Pontiac.
So Kyle Petty comes in for his stop. Earnhardt picks up the lead. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Sabco Racing Crew will change left side tires on Kyle Petty, very similar to what we saw up pit road a few moments ago with some of the other cars changing left sides only, like Kenny Schrader. Left side, left front, left rear tires on. The car has been fueled. The windshield has been cleaned. He roars the car back to life down pit road and heads for turn 1.
13 seconds and Kyle Petty is back into the action, but Dale Earnhardt has picked up the lead and is in front once again at the Atlanta 500. We'll be back.
Keep watching what I want to. Now I can see what I've been missing, and that's quite a lot.
Back at the Atlanta 500, 244 laps of the 328 scheduled distance, 500 miles. Dale Earnhardt is the leader. That's Darrell Waltrip sitting right behind him. He is not a factor, not running in second. Look back to the 11 car of Jeff Bodine. That is your second place machine. Now, Earnhardt has dominated in the early going in this race. We've been setting a blistering pace here today, 158.4 miles an hour now. Only one caution period for 3 laps when Terry Labonte blew an engine on lap number 6. So it's been running very, very fast, very smooth, and for the most part, the day has belonged to Earnhardt. But remember, that's exactly what happened at the Daytona 500, only to find the car cut down a tire with just 1 mile to go. Waltrip is in an interesting position in that 17 car. He is trying to get around and get back on the leader lap, so should the caution come out, he will close up along with everybody else. But Earnhardt is not having any part of it. Earnhardt, on his last stop, was concerned about how the tires were holding. They made some changes in the car, and now he appears to be running down in a line a little bit lower than he was before the stop, so it appears, Benny Parsons, they made a correction.
They have made a correction, but Mark Martin passed Earnhardt just a moment ago and drove away. He's about 5th. There's Mark Martin in front of Earnhardt. He passed him a little bit ago. And again, not many cars have passed Earnhardt. So Dale's car, he was dominant in the early part of the race. He is not as dominant now as he was 50 laps ago.
He's obviously got a front end pushing problem right now, or at least a minor one, Benny, because as you watch him go into the turns, he's going in very low, and he skates up to the outside of the racetrack with the front end, which means that he's pushing. So they probably overcorrected a little bit on their adjustment, but they can change it back the next time he makes a pit stop.
So Earnhardt leads. Bodine runs in second. Schrader is third. Derek Cope, the Daytona 500 winner, with a good ride today, up in fourth place in the number 10 Chevrolet. Morgan Shepherd was up leading at one point, ran in second for a while, and is now in fifth place. Ernie Irvin runs in sixth place in number 4. Alan Kulwicki is seventh, and Mark Martin runs in eighth right now.
Here's Morgan Shepherd, who the 5th place car has caught Derek Cope. This was for 4th place. Morgan started to look inside, decided he couldn't make the move, follows Derek Cope down the back straightaway.
What a wonderful run for both Cope and Morgan Shepherd today. Here we are at 245 laps. Earnhardt still the key factor in this race. Average speed is way up there, owing not only to Earnhardt, but the only one caution period in the run. So the Atlanta 500 is running fast and furious, and Dale Earnhardt is leading it. But will he stay there? There's still laps to be run.
After the scraping.
Back at the Atlanta 500, Dale Earnhardt still out in front, setting an incredible pace, 14 miles an hour for the race average, above the old race record. I won't even tell you who holds that record, but he's standing to my left, and Benny's not feeling any too good about it. Earnhardt out in front. Jeff Bodine runs in second place. We talked to Dale about his 1990 season so far and his absence in winner's circle. Is he worried?
Daytona and Richmond, we had pretty good races. Rockingham race, we had a problem with the rear end, but there's 3 races and just 3 drivers have won. It's not, there's plenty of drivers out here other than Dale Earnhardt hadn't won, but there's a lot of other guys that's not leading the points championship either. So we're leading the points, and we've been dominant at several races, and well, 2 of the 3 races, and we feel good coming into Atlanta. Atlanta and Darlington, these races coming up are our races, and we do well at those. So we're looking forward to it. I'm not worried about where Dale Earnhardt's at just yet. Get down to 5 or 6 races to go, and we're not in too good a shape. I'm not worried about it.
But Dale Earnhardt, well, maybe he'll change his ways with a win here today. He's certainly on his way to that right now. Derek Cope was running in 4th place and took a turn down, began to slow, and is on pit road now as we continue to watch Dale Earnhardt. 2nd place is Jeff Bodine. There's Derek Cope. 3rd place is Kenny Schrader. Now Morgan Shepherd is up to 4th place. Looks like it's done for Derek Cope for the day.
That's to the garage area. That means that he is out for the day.
That's too bad. He really had a good day going for him, but he's still got the drive in him that was given him at the Daytona 500. Once you win that first race, you're ready to go.
And especially if it's a Daytona 500. You know, there's a lot of guys that have won races at Martinsville and places like that. It doesn't seem to propel them like a Daytona 500. It's fantastic that what happened to him after he won the 500, all the attention he received.
Yeah, let's remember, he didn't really get that all given to him. He had to be in 2nd place, and he had to be pretty doggone close. Otherwise, he would have been able to take advantage of Dale having a flat tire.
Well, at least he is no longer a challenge to this man as he was at Daytona, because at 499 miles, Derek Cope motored past Dale Earnhardt when he cut a tire down. Earnhardt's trying to make up for that now, and you've got to admit that Chevy is running just like it's on rails around this track. He had a little handling problem early on, or a few laps ago actually. They brought it in, made some changes to the car. The changes seem to have worked. That's the interval back to 2nd place, and there's the 2nd place car, the 11 machine of Jeff Bodine. In 3rd place, as we said, is Kenny Schrader.
But Jeff Bodine has gained just a little bit. He's gained about a second in the last 4 or 5 laps. He doesn't have a big advantage on Earnhardt, but he is a little bit quicker than Dale Earnhardt as we speak.
Earnhardt running in this position, do you think something like the finish at Daytona gnaws at him? I mean, he's not dealing with a lot of traffic. He's just working his way around here. How much thinking about other things is he doing?
No, all he's doing right now is concentrating on what this car is doing right now as he enters in the corner. What can I tell Richard and my crew to do to the car to make it better the next time I make a pit stop? That's what's going through his mind.
He goes through 1 and 2 running pretty high once again.
And keep another thing in mind, that the Winston Cup racing is so competitive and so close anymore that there's really no advantage to Dale having any more than just a little ways out of his rear view mirror in the back advantage. Anything after that would be a waste, because he's really not going to be able to get a lap up like on second place car like he did the old days.
All right, let's go to the garage area now. Jerry Punch is with Derek Cope.
Well, Daytona 500 winner Derek Cope sitting in the car. They are going to try to refire the car. The crew motioning to him. Derek, what seems to be the problem?
Well, I don't really know. You know, went down the front straightaway, and all of a sudden the motor made a funny noise and started to lock up, so I got it out of gear. But it's really unfortunate. We had the Pure Leader Chevrolet Lumina running very well today, and thought we had a chance we could put 4 tires on to get right up front.
A lot of cars seem to be gaining on Earnhardt. Can anyone run with him, do you think, right now?
Well, I really felt like we could. You know, we were gaining on him, and then we kept putting on 2 tires, and we were only getting 2 tires to stop, unlike the other guys with 4. And we were just hoping one more caution where we could get 4 tires. We thought we could have dealt with him.
Derek Cope, after a great run, looks pretty grim now. He sits in the garage area here in Atlanta.
Well, doesn't work now, but he still has had a great year thus far. He's going to win again. Earnhardt may be on his way to a win. We'll be back.
The Italians lust for anything American. So in cars, Tonio Liguori prefers an American one. And of all the ways to a woman's heart, he chooses the American way. Cool, clean, Old Spice. #1 in America. #1 in the world. Only one deodorant in the world has so many odor-fighting ingredients with the cool, clean scent of Old Spice.
There's a motor oil that talks about quality. Always has, always will. Well, Valvoline makes the highest quality motor oil recommended by any automobile manufacturer. Oh yeah, unlike the competition, Valvoline also makes the motor oil used by 7 out of 10 Indy 500 crew chiefs. That's 7 out of 10 Indy crew chiefs over the last 10 years. People who know, use Valvoline.
It can stop the hottest action. The Minolta Maxim 3000i. Ultra-wide angles. Over 30 autofocus lenses. Extreme telephoto zooms. It captures what no snapshot camera can, even in difficult lighting. It's the autofocus SLR that's this easy. The incomparable Maxim 3000i. Only from the mind of Minolta.
The Ford Thunderbird. A perfect car for a nice Sunday drive.
Now get 6.9 financing for up to 48 months or a $1,000 cash bonus on Ford Thunderbird.
There is no doubt that a murder has been committed.
Whenever there's a crime.
Just what is one dead black boy worth these days?
Whenever there's a cause.
I've never lain down on a case in my life, and I'm not going to lie down on this one.
Whenever there's justice to be served.
The jury has the right to decide each person's involvement, not you, not me.
These are the lawyers for the people.
The boy was on his knees, begging for mercy.
The special preview of Equal Justice, March 27th.
At Atlanta, Dale Earnhardt still out in front. He's up the average speed another mile an hour. He's now averaging 159.3 miles an hour. We're still running a record on cautions as well. This race has run with 2 cautions in the past twice, but never with 1. But we've only had 1 caution period. That little tiny one for only about 3 laps. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
You know, if you would take a poll up and down pit road and ask who the most important member of a pit crew is, some people might say, well, maybe it's the jack man or maybe the guy who changes the tires. But if you ask the drivers, the most important pit crew member isn't in the pits at all. It's a fellow who's outside the racetrack, up on top of a building in the front straightaway. It's the spotters. Now, that's the driver's only link to the entire racetrack. Much like the coaches in the skyboxes at an NFL or college football game, it's those guys that call the shots as far as traffic and good lines on the racetrack. That's probably one reason we've had so much green flag racing here today. These guys on the top of that press box are able to talk to the drivers and avoid any kind of slower cars or any other problems. So they can obviously keep the car under green as long as possible. Value member of the pit crew, not here in the pits, up in the tower, the pit spotter.
Extra set of eyes helping everybody. This man seems to be getting the most help, but it doesn't look like he needs much of it.
Yeah. What is it? The guys with all the money have all the success?
And we've mentioned this a few times. 159.3 miles an hour now. Way, way up from somebody's record. 1984, Benny Parsons. You notice that Earnhardt has been using a higher groove. The racetrack, as the day wears on, tends to move up there, doesn't it?
It does. He's moved up on the racetrack, and Jeff Bodine was gaining on Dale Earnhardt a little bit ago, and we chronicled that fact. But now Earnhardt is pulling away from Jeff Bodine. He's running up on top of the racetrack and pulling away.
What causes the track to change like that?
Well, as Bobby mentioned, all the oil, the fluids that leak on the bottom of the racetrack, all the running they do on the bottom of the racetrack, they move up high where there's green racetrack where they can get a good grip for those tires.
All right, Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, we were checking with Richard Childress just a while ago for Dale Earnhardt, and he said that when they made that change on the right side, they were a little more comfortable with the setup. Maybe that contributes to why he's running a little better in different areas on the racetrack. And if they're on target, they'll be in about the next 5 laps. They'll change the opposite side rubber. That should do them with enough fuel to get them right to the end of the race. That could be close because they've been running right about 55 laps on each tank of gas this afternoon, and 55 from this next anticipated stop should just get them to the checkered flag. We'll soon find out.
Yeah, Gary Gerald, they're going to be cutting it right on the money to the race.
Well, you know Richard Childress as well as I do, and he's one of the masterminds of this sport, and I'm sure that if there's any benefit of a doubt, they would have hedged it just a little bit longer. So I'm sure that they're confident that they'll have enough with this final stop to get them the distance.
And of course, Richard Childress never been a man to gamble at all.
No, not RC. But you know, Dale Earnhardt only changed 2 tires the last time he stopped. You know, for the first time all day, he changed 2 tires. Now, this stop, is he going to change 2 and gamble that the other tires will go the rest of the way? Or is he going to change 4? Maybe that's going to give the advantage back to Morgan Shepherd, who last time changed 4 tires. He can get away with a 2-tire stop.
Well, it certainly could, Benny, and he doesn't seem to have the tremendous advantage that he had earlier. Although I've been watching as he laps people, as he passes the slower cars, he just cuts right down to the bottom. Totally the opposite than what he did, say, for example, before the last pit stop.
Earnhardt apparently anticipating his stop due any time now. He was only about 1.5 seconds ahead of Bodine, and then he picked up the pace, kicked it in the butt the past couple of laps, and is now moving back up at a little higher speed than he was earlier, and has widened out the interval to almost 3.5 seconds to Bodine. Whatever that is, it's still not nearly enough for him to stay in the lead when he stops. And here comes that stop. As Mark Martin lies just ahead of him, here is Dale Earnhardt on the pit roll, rolling down. He comes past Martin. And Bodine will pick up the lead of the race as Dale Earnhardt hits the pits. Here's Gary.
He comes in with a cloud of smoke. They go to work on the left side, as we expected. Now, if our calculations are correct, it's 58 laps to the finish. These stops have been coming like clockwork at 55 laps. We haven't seen an indication from our vantage point of any suspension changes. Problem, however, on the left front, they drop the wrench and he gets away. It was much slower than the last time, Paul. Nearly 20 seconds as they changed the left side rubber, and may have had a problem on the left front.
And he's a little slow getting away as well.
He is. He did not get up to speed like he normally does. There's the leader, Jeff Bodine, as he comes off the second corner. He passes Earnhardt.
So Bodine picks up the lead, has yet to stop though, but that wasn't very much like that team. They had a problem there.
Well, they did have a problem, Paul. And remember, Jeff Bodine, when he did go by Dale, he had a good head of steam up. So it's going to look like he has a lot of distance, but it's going to be turnaround fair play not too long from now when Bodine has to make his pit stop.
That's the kind of thing that sends up all the warning flags, though. You have a smooth day. You're able to deal with every challenge, and then some little tiny thing goes wrong and can just ruin a wonderful afternoon.
Looked like something happened to an impact wrench or a hose or something. Kurt Schummerdine had to go back over and get another gun to finish changing the left front tire.
Petty in and out of the pits. By the way, we saw Richard Petty go behind the wall earlier, but they were able to get the car back rolling once again and get Richard back into the action.
You know, one of the things you have to worry about or think about just a little bit with Dale Earnhardt is when he came in, he had more brakes on the rear. The brake bias was turned a little bit to the rear, which is better on a high-speed track. But by the same token, he slid that right rear tire quite a ways. Now, the question will be is, did he flat spot that tire just a little bit? Now, if he did, that could make the rear end of his car just a bit loose.
Okay, Bobby, help us out a little here. Brake bias to the rear.
Well, they can adjust the brakes from the front to the rear inside the car. The driver can do it for his choice.
The fronts will brake harder or the backs will brake harder?
Right, and in this particular case, Dale's had his tune more to the rear, where he has more brake on the rear. So as he came into the pit, you saw that his right rear was locking up. Now, across the rear, he has more weight on the left than he does the right. So therefore, the right one was the one that slid. And that's where the smoke was coming from. Now the question is again, did he have a chance to flat spot that tire? Just a little bit makes a gigantic difference in, say, like 170 mile an hour laps.
What's the brake bias on like a passenger car?
It's usually fairly neutral. Of course, today, with all the telemetry stuff and the computer stuff, Paul, it's zero. It's E for most of them.
So we keep an eye on the new leader, Jeff Bodine. We've seen this scenario played before. Earnhardt comes into the pits a little bit out of the cycle. Bodine, with some pretty good strategy off his team, stays out for a pretty good run and holds the lead. Now we're coming down Benny Parsons toward the end of the race. These tactics of the early going now begin to tell.
Well, that's right. And Jeff Bodine has a tremendous advantage. He may be able to go to lap 300 or 310. He will probably do a gas only. What do you think about that? We might want to find out if he's just going to put gas in the car, or is he going to change tires? Maybe he only's got to put in one can of gas. A tremendous advantage because it'll only take him 5 or 6 seconds to do that.
And of course, there's still the possible factor of a caution period. We've only seen one. It's hard to believe you're going to get to the end of this thing without another caution. How would that affect things?
Well, right now, this fellow Jeff Bodine does not want to see a caution flag. I would say Earnhardt probably wants to see a caution flag as much as anyone here.
He can go in then and top off and guarantee his finish.
Then he can get 4 tires.
But if he gets one right now, Benny, that would be disaster for him. If he has one before these guys pit, that's the end of Dale Earnhardt as far as winning this race.
He's a lap down. Exactly right, Bobby.
Well, a factor of how much the planning in the pits, the tactics, the strategy really play into NASCAR racing today. So often the driver is a very, very fast passenger, and a lot of the tactics are being played out on the other side of that pit wall. Jeff Bodine leads it. Kenny Schrader is in second. Morgan Shepherd rides in third. Ernie Irvin is fourth, and Mark Martin is fifth. We'll be back.
Why don't you love me like you used to do? Commitment. What did she call the last 11 months? My hair still curly and my eyes still blue. That's the way she wants it. Hey, if she can go her way, we'll go our way. You know what I mean?
One day it could all come down to a few inches. For those few inches, it's good to know you have Goodyear tires.
You think someone's trying to tell us something up there?
That's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
She gets another shot.
Our bike business had never been better. So one day we just looked at each other and knew it was time to go public.
Your auditor gives us an accurate picture of your capital needs. When are we going to hear?
It takes time. Off to New York, guys.
Engine repairs can cost you. So remember, Fram oil filters protect your engine better because they stop more dirt the first time through than any other filter. Fram, you could pay a little now or a lot later.
You guys aren't supposed to be in here.
Hey, no problem, Honorable Dojo guy.
But this is an import car.
We're the auto lights, guaranteed in any language.
Sayonara.
A kiss? Oh, not right now. You really don't want to kiss me.
Dangerous. Very dangerous.
Give me a minute, honey.
Don't let morning breath ruin a good morning. Get Scope. Scope has 2 powerful ingredients to kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Didn't I hear something about a kiss?
Right here. Right now.
Kiss me.
It is time for a kiss.
Scope, the best thing first thing in the morning.
Hey, you, put that kiss right here.
Back in Atlanta, 286 laps complete. The scheduled distance, 328. Jeff Bodine is the leader, anticipating a stop from Bodine, as well as most of the leaders. Remember, Dale Earnhardt, who has been the focal point of this race, is out of cycle in his stops. With everyone else, he's already made what should be his last stop of the race. He'll be going to the finish, but he would really like to see a caution come out because it could improve his handling if he could duck into pits and pick it up.
But as Bobby mentioned, not right yet until this car makes his pit stop, or all the cars that are have him a lap down now, they need to make their pit stop. Then he needs the caution flag.
So Jeff Bodine leads it. Ernie Irvan runs in second place.
And according to the way this day has gone, well, we can't rely on caution flags doing anything for this race. Been a fabulous race, though, but it's been one of the longest races we've seen without a caution flag.
Some of the other contenders have made stops. Kenny Schrader, one of them. Let's get an update. Here's Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, Kenny Schrader came in right side and fuel. No chassis adjustments, 14.5 seconds. Morgan Shepherd, who's been in the top 3 or 4 consistently, also got the same service. He was quickly back out. Both stops appeared to be fully routine, Paul.
So it's a calm time in the pits, though I'm sure that there's a lot of thinking going on. Got a few calculators out doing some refiguring to make sure they all know exactly where they can stop in the Atlanta 500. Jeff Bodine continues his lead, then Ernie Irvan, then Dale Earnhardt. Nice smooth ride here. And we're seeing out of Bodine's car some of the characteristics that we saw earlier on from Earnhardt. But look at this. Here comes Bodine heading down the pits, and he'll come in for some service.
Well, you can't say he's not hurrying now the way he came off that banking.
Lap number 290 in the record books for Jeff Bodine. Here's Jerry Punch.
They actually could run to about 8 or 9 more laps, fellas, on fuel, but they wanted to come in because Tim Brewer, the crew chief, saw that Bodine was beginning to stopwatch, knowing the tires were going away. They come in, put 1 can of fuel in. They have changed right side tires. Great pit stop here for the Bodine crew.
Wonderful stop, just a tick over 12 seconds. Second place car, Ernie Irvan, followed the leader in.
You see him beating up the spoiler. You talk about adjusting the car with a spoiler, Bobby. They was knocking the spoiler up on the 4 car.
We were wondering when they was going to start doing that, Benny. That racetrack certainly should be slippery enough by now.
So if you bring that spoiler up, you're going to get a little more downforce at the back end. Try and correct some of that as Ernie Irvan heads back into the action.
And as Ernie goes back around the apron of the racetrack, let me report that Jeff Bodine now has about 1 corner lead on the 3 car of Dale Earnhardt. So in the pit stop exchange, Jeff Bodine come out with an advantage. There's Earnhardt. As he goes across the start-finish line, Jeff Bodine is out in the middle of 1 and 2. He has over a 7-second advantage.
And let's remember, there wasn't much speed between these 2 cars. If anything, Earnhardt only had a small speed advantage before. Now, we're going to have to see Bodine really getting her up. My bet is he can really do it.
Some of Junior Johnson's calculations may have paid off here. Bodine running out in front of Earnhardt. Earnhardt trying to catch up. Jeff Bodine, the number 11 machine, works his way around this track, still maintaining a record pace at 159.3 miles an hour, 292 laps into the record book. 328 laps, the scheduled distance.
And the difference was the problem they had on the left front tire of Earnhardt's car. Remember the problem that the left front tire changer had? It lasted about 7. His pit stop was about 7 seconds longer than Jeff Bodine's. Now Jeff Bodine has a 7-second advantage.
You race for 159 miles an hour for 500 miles, and the difference is made in a couple of seconds. Gary Gerald is now with Richard Childress.
Paul Benny was talking about the problem on that pit stop for Dale Earnhardt. Richard, what was the problem on the left front?
We had a lug nut to get hung up in the air wrench, and it just cost us some extra time.
You lose 6 or 7 seconds there, and it's now translated with Bodine's stop on the track. You feel like you got enough muscle you can reel him in.
I don't know, Jeff's running pretty good. You know, it'd be tough to make it up with no more time than we got left.
I'm assuming that you're good. You can go the rest of the way, even though it's a pretty tight window for your crew at about 58 laps when you made that stop.
Yeah, we can make it all the way on gas. We just lost so much time on that pit stop.
All right, that's the situation here in the Earnhardt pit as we check in with Jerry Punch.
Well, we're standing with a fellow who needs no introduction, the legendary Junior Johnson, whose cars have won 7 times here in Atlanta. And, Junior, you guys did a whale of a job on that pit stop to get Jeff back out front.
Well, all we had to do is change the tires and put in what gas we could, and we can we're set to go the rest of the way. So I think we're okay, though. We needed the new tires to run fast at the latter part of the race here.
They were watching Earnhardt's pit stop earlier. When his stop was over 20 seconds, they knew if they could get out in under 15 seconds, they could win this thing. Their stop was 12.8. They may have just won the race for their driver.
Yeah, the genius of that man, Junior Johnson, with the driving skills of Jeff Bodine, may have paid off here.
There's a second place car. There goes the first place car. And you saw just how far Earnhardt was behind Jeff Bodine. He is gaining, but I don't know if he's gaining fast enough.
That's a long ways to go, isn't it, Benny? These cars have been so close all day, and it's going to be very difficult. It would look, just looking at them, like a third of a lap, and that's a long ways to go.
But you know that's the kind of challenge that Earnhardt will respond pretty heartily to. He's got to really have his foot in it right now, trying desperately to catch up to Bodine's car.
You know what Dale Earnhardt has been through this year with Daytona, with Richmond, and then at Rockingham. He wants to win this race as badly as he's ever wanted to win one in his life. He's got to be seeing fire in his eyes when he sees that 11 in front of him.
Well, he's been the dominant car all day, but to run against Jeff Bodine, who's definitely a Charger, and a Junior Johnson, who's got to be about the cagiest old fox in racing, and that's got to be a tough team. When they're going to hit a good team together, they're going to be extra tough.
Some interesting strategy played here today. The focal point, most of the race to this point, has been Earnhardt and the way he's been running away. But then the pit stop cycles playing a key role. Junior Johnson figuring out how to get his driver, Jeff Bodine, out in front where he is running now ahead of Earnhardt. We watch Bodine. Let's go back and take a look at that last stop. This is Earnhardt as he came into the pits.
The right rear, as Bobby mentioned, very, very light on that car, so he was spinning. The car was sliding the right rear. We watched Kirk Shelmerdine changing the left front tire. He starts to put the tire back on, tighten it up. The left rear man is ready, but Kirk throws a wrench aside. They hand him another wrench because, as he mentioned, Jerry Punt showed us earlier in the day a lug nut was hung in the socket, and they couldn't use that gun. Had to get another one.
Such a tiny, inexpensive thing that may have cost Earnhardt the Atlanta 500. Bodine is the leader.
You looking for some good times? Your Kawasaki dealer's got just what you need. Good times credit. If you qualify, you can use it on just about anything in the store. Motorcycles, jet ski watercraft, apparel, accessories, even service. You'll get an answer fast and even better, zero down financing. So get on down to your Kawasaki dealer while he's still got something left to sell you. Can you give me a hand with this door? Hello?
Nothing's rougher on a man's face than shaving. That's why there's Skin Bracer. It's more than an aftershave. It soothes, cools, tightens pores, so it's good for your skin.
Thanks. I needed that.
Skin Bracer Aftershave.
By men.
The product.
The vehicles.
The testing grounds. The results. STP oil treatment is the edge.
Why buy one of those refrigerators that may be guaranteed for only the next few years when you could have the only one that has a money-back guarantee until the year 2000? The Maytag refrigerator. Buy one now, and if it stops working before the year 2000, we'll buy it back. See a Maytag dealer for details. See a Maytag repairman in our commercials. The Maytag refrigerator. Buy one now, and we'll guarantee it till the year 2000.
This Saturday, the top names in tennis meet at the Lipton International Players Championships. Then bowling's best take aim at the Budweiser Open. And on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the finest female gymnasts compete for individual gold at the Women's World Gymnastics Championships. Plus, live, a head-to-head match race showdown at 50 meters. Olympic gold medalists Rowdy Gaines and Matt Biondi are among the elite field competing for the U.S. Swimming Sprint Championship. It's all Saturday on ABC Sports.
Mr. Bodine, look out, because Dale Earnhardt is on the charge. He's closing in. He's about 5-6 seconds sitting back. Bobby Unser's got the watch on him. He's been gaining as much as a half-second a lap. In our booth crew here, Fran Leonard, Jeremy Shaw, Greg Felding, Mike Hadley. Felding's been running the time calculations to the end of the race, Benny, and he's saying they're going to be racing here real quick.
4.5 seconds, just the interval a moment ago, or a few laps ago, is like 7 seconds. So Earnhardt is coming. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, he can see that 11 car now. He knows when he's gaining, and that gives him more and more incentive to hit the throttle a little bit quicker and get off a little bit later.
Well, also you can bet that Junior Johnson is calling Bodine and telling him, hey, he's moving up on you pretty quick. So it's going to be the heck with the tires. They're not going to be trying to save anything. This is going to make the decision who's going to win pretty quick. Ruin it all, whatever, try to win the race.
These cars have now put in almost 300 laps without a caution, too. Is that wearing them down? Is that pulling on the engines without getting them a break?
I don't think it's wearing on the engine. Who it's wearing on is the drivers, because these fellows normally, we have caution flags, slowdown periods, as the drivers are able to sit back and relax. But at this racetrack, we talked about the beginning of the racetrack. It's 1 mile in the corners, a half mile on the straightaways. These fellows are in a bind all the day, a physical bind all day. They are exhausted about now.
3 seconds, Paul. He lost another about a second and a quarter there. 3 seconds, all that separates first and second right now.
Earnhardt closing in, and we have a race 306 laps complete, 328 the scheduled distance, as Earnhardt now driving for all he's worth. He's got a reputation at stake here. He's had a good year. He owned this race until Bodine got out in front. We take a look at Bodine now. A couple of times, are we seeing something at the back of Bodine's car there? Or is he just smoking a tire from time to time?
I thought I saw 3.7, almost a second, 3/4 of a second. He's gained in the last couple of laps.
Let's go down to the pits. Here is Jerry Punch.
The Bodine crew are watching what we're watching at home, and that's the interval shrinking considerably between Jeff Bodine and Dale Earnhardt. Now, I just talked to Tim Brewer here, the crew chief, a minute ago, and Brewer said that, hey, I know he's catching us. He'll probably catch us with about 4 or 5 laps to go. But catching us is one thing, passing us is something totally different. He said, hey, it should be one heck of a wreck.
Buddy Baker's still out there. He's got to be a tired puppy by now as he makes his comeback.
He caught me by surprise. I just knew he was going to say race. Didn't you think?
I thought so. I totally agree with you. But I will say this. You have 2 very good, very stubborn race drivers in first and second place.
Well, just so we keep track of it, Kenny Schrader is running in 3rd place. We take a look at the interval again as they come to the main stretch. There's Bodine across the line. Earnhardt is closing in with 19 laps to go. Just begins to reel them in. They deal with the traffic that runs ahead of them.
You could just watch Earnhardt's car when he went into that turn 1. The first one in, let go, and then the other in. I mean, he's really sliding that thing, or he's really trying hard to catch up.
Down to 2.7 seconds. I'm Paul Page with Benny Parsons, Bobby Unser, Gary Gerald, and Jerry Punch. We're at the Atlanta 500, and we've got a race. 309 laps are complete. 300 of those have been run under the green flag. We've had only 1 caution period. That sent the race record through the ceiling at 159.9 miles an hour. They're going to crack 160 if they keep it up as a race average. And Jeff Bodine is leading this race, but he is being reeled in ever so slowly by Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt running in 2nd, closing in.
And you know, one thing I noticed about Earnhardt, Paul, is he's really been trying some different grooves, trying to catch up. He's really been running low, high, anything to kind of cut across.
We saw the blue and white number 47 just a moment ago. The car of Jack Pennington blew an engine. There was some smoke up in turn 4. Everyone jumped up, thought there would be a caution flag, but no caution flag. Still no caution flag.
Just a tick under 2 seconds now. The distance between Bodine and Earnhardt as Earnhardt continues his charge. He can see Bodine just ahead. Neil Bonnet sits ahead of Bodine now. Bonnet is not a factor in this run. But Earnhardt can see all of this happening. As you can see, there's traffic there. So now part of the key becomes pacing. You've got to figure that traffic a mile or so ahead of you.
You've got to figure out where you're going to be at best to catch them. Can you pass them inside, outside? Because you certainly don't want to lose any momentum at all.
Even though drafting isn't really important here in Atlanta, Paul, every little bit's going to help. Dale would just like to get close enough where he thought he could pick up a little bit. Don't you think, Benny?
Oh, yes. If he can get back that close to Jeff Bodine, he certainly feels like he can win.
Down to 1.49 seconds as they come across the line once again. When they're looking ahead here, Benny, they don't look straight ahead on the straightaway. You're actually looking up and to the left because of the banking.
Exactly. You're looking to, you can't look straight ahead because when you're in the turns being banked 24 degrees, you can't see anything directly in front of you. You have to kind of look to the left.
In past years, the setting sun has been a factor at the end of this race. We're running it so fast, I'm not so sure it's going to be.
No, at this time of the day, the sun is not that big of a problem.
Another thing, we have a nice thin layer of clouds up above, so it's filtering the sun a little bit, even if they got a little place where they had it. Don't you think on that, Ben?
Well, I don't. It's pretty sunny over in turn 3. It could be a problem, but again, it's a little bit after 4 o'clock Eastern time. The problem really enters in about 5 o'clock in the afternoon following Bobby.
Bodine continues to work around this track. Number 11 still showing at the top of the order.
And no cars. Ooh, there is some
smoke again.
Some smoke out of that 11 car.
That's the right rear. He's just definitely busting her loose. That means he's trying hard. Can't try any harder than to bust your right rear loose.
He also doesn't have much choice.
And right behind, look, the 2 cars, no traffic between them. This is the race for the lead.
Running at the front of the race, Jeff Bodine now. He's got Dale Earnhardt. Every time he looks up in his mirror, I think I'd just tape the thing over. I wouldn't want to see that big number 3 up behind me. Bodine now tries to hold him off. A couple of laps, we've seen that telltale smoke at the right rear of the car caused as he leans into that right rear. He's cutting those corners so hard. We're not seeing that out of Earnhardt. We may see Bodine just run out of tires. 12 laps to go.
Kathy Bodine watches her husband Jeff go in turn 1. She also watches Dale Earnhardt close up right on the back bumper of him. Ooh, Earnhardt almost got the car sideways coming off. He's still wiggling.
He's still unsteady as the interval lengthens out just a little bit.
Momentum is so important. Even though Dale, you saw him wiggle for quite a while, ended 170 miles an hour. Hey, that's a big wiggle. He wouldn't back out because the momentum he cannot afford to lose right now.
Bodine still working that right rear tire hard. Earnhardt closes in just a little bit more. On the front stretch now, working into the first turn. Earnhardt trying it up high. Bodine down low. Earnhardt takes it way high.
Now what he'd like to be doing right now is to be jerking Bodine's rear end out from under him. In other words, loosen him up a little bit more because Earnhardt can see the smoke coming off of Jeff's right rear tire. So that's a strategy deal he's trying to do.
Earnhardt pulls it high. Bodine's down in the low groove. Both of them spoke the right rears on that one. Both of them spoke as they come down the line, and the yellow flag comes out. The yellow flag is out as they come to the line. Bodine stays in front of Earnhardt. Yellow flag, 318 laps, 10 to go.
Wow.
Boy, that's as good a race as you're going to see for a while, I think. I mean, 2 of them, first and second place, smoking the right rear tire simultaneously. Man, that's good.
Rusty Wallace blew up. Rusty Wallace blew an engine down the front straightaway is the reason for the caution flag.
No contact with the wall, though. He kept it under control. Boy, oh boy. Good break for Bodine, but he's going to go right back to the green with Earnhardt sitting right where he was.
Are you going to pit? The question is, are you going to pit?
I would say they can't afford to, Benny. They're just awfully late in the race to be doing that.
Let's see.
10 laps to go when the yellow came out.
Let's see. They both stay on the racetrack.
And a good break for Morgan Shepherd and Ken Schrader, the third and fourth place runners, as this will give them a chance to close in on the leaders.
You know, the thing about it is you watched Jeff Bodine, he just was heading for the bottom, getting so low on the bottom of the racetrack. He's trying to get down where the pavement still dry. In other words, no rubber on the racetrack. There's Wallace pulling in now out of the race. And you watched Dale Earnhardt, who went completely to the opposite end. Of course, there was a method to that. He was trying to pull Bodine's rear end looser than what it already is. And by golly, I think it was just about to work until the yellow came out.
And when you talk about that, too, what we're saying is that he's spoiling some of the aerodynamics on the car in front of him and causing the characteristics of the car to change, right?
Well, he's making the air flow towards him. Remember, the car that's in the back can make the air off the car in the front flow towards the car in the back, Paul.
All right, let's go to the pits, Gary Gerald.
An opportunity just a moment ago to get a quick word with Richard Childress. We were going to try to check strategy. His crew pulled him away. They needed to talk. We're waiting to see, will they wait and copy what Bodine does? Will they come in on their own? We thought we'd get a word, but he just waved us off. We're just going to have to wait with everybody else, Paul, as this crew stands on the wall under this dramatic late race yellow.
They're in the pits. They're coming in the pits, all of them. Most of the field peels down. There's Bodine, Earnhardt right behind them. They're going to come in together. Of course, that's pretty good tactic. Follow the leader in. Bodine comes in to make his stop. Morgan Shepherd picks up the lead under yellow.
He did not pit. He stayed on the racetrack. Now these guys have to get mine. We're changing 4 tires on the Goodrich Chevrolet, changing 4 tires on the Budweiser Ford.
8 laps to go. We're under yellow. We're certainly going to see green before the end of this race. Morgan Shepherd may be on his way to win number 3. He's won at Atlanta before. He's positioned well now.
Earnhardt gets out in front of Bodine.
Let's see where they'll position relative to Morgan Shepherd as they come up into the field. Shepherd stayed out.
And remember, under the caution flag, which we're cautioned right now, the faster cars get the outside lane. They're able to go to the front. The cars that have been lapped have to go to the left. So the penalty isn't quite so bad for the guy that stayed out.
Look at Bodine here. Pulls up alongside. A little conversation with Dale. That's Buddy Baker down on the inside.
I wonder what that conversation would be. Whoa.
I don't know, but I'll bet you Buddy's pretty tired right now.
Here's our leader, Morgan Shepherd. He stayed out. But as Bobby said, it's not that much of an advantage because Earnhardt and Bodine will move up on the outside right behind Morgan Shepherd.
Yeah, but still behind. Still got to get around him.
But they'll both have 4 brand new tires on there, really fresh, and as slippery as the track is right now, Paul, it's going to give them a big advantage.
And it's going to give us a great finish. Atlanta 500. Who would have predicted that it would come down to this? Looked like Earnhardt was running away with this thing. Bodine, with some great tactical maneuvers from Junior Johnson, gets into the lead. And this yellow comes out, second one of the day, matching the record for fewest number of cautions. And Morgan Shepherd stays out, picks up the lead.
It's certainly been more than a good race. Lord only knows you couldn't pick out a winner at the start.
And let's talk about a little bit about Mark Martin. He's someone we haven't talked about all day. But about 100 laps ago, he passed Dale Earnhardt. He passed Earnhardt and got back in the lead lap when this caution flag came out. Now Earnhardt's trying to go by him because he thinks Mark Martin is a lap down. He's not a lap down.
He's not. He's in second place right now. Mark Martin's not having any part of it either.
No, sir.
Watch that as Earnhardt, he looks over to take a look at Earnhardt and says,
And Mark Martin did make a pit stop. I don't know how many tires he changed, but I did see him in the pits.
So we've got a race when they come back to green, which should be back with 6 laps to go to the finish. Pace car rolls down. Watch the row on the high side. Can Morgan Shepherd hold on by his fingertips?
Earnhardt did not particularly get a good restart. I don't know what the problem is, but
Kulwicki comes up high and gets in front of everybody from the lower row. Now Shepherd comes down, works the low line. Kulwicki not a factor in this run. He's in 8th place. Shepherd gets past him.
Oh, spin.
Bobby Hillin loses it in turn 4, and the yellow comes out again.
But the leaders didn't catch the caution flag. They've got the race back all the way to the line. Let's see.
Bobby Hillin, they're the leaders. Looked like Bodine tapped Hillin, causing that one. Yellow is out. They race to the line.
And the 7th car is trying desperate to get a lap back. Kulwicki trying to pass Morgan Shepherd to get the lap back.
Boy, do you believe this? Bodine comes to Shepherd comes to the line as the leader. Kulwicki doesn't get the lap back.
Now the thing that we saw here is in NASCAR, they race around to the yellow flag. That's the reason that lap was a continuous green flag type of a lap.
The key factor, the positioning of Earnhardt, though. Earnhardt moves up to second.
Exactly right, and he has 4 fresh tires, and he is in second place. Now then, if we have any more green flag racing, Looks like Earnhardt just might have him a race won.
Well, we should be able to get back to green. You saw the spin. It shouldn't have thrown much on the track, and he got clear. So we ought to be able to come back green pretty quick.
We just might get one to go this time by. We'll see what Harold Kinder says.
We're heading down for a great finish. The Atlanta 500. Whoever would have guessed? A lot of people gave this race away to Earnhardt by the halfway point. But now Morgan Shepherd's up there. That's great.
Earnhardt's been called the Intimidator. Now, I wonder how much he's going to intimidate Morgan Shepherd right now, or how much he'd like to be intimidating him.
All right, let's take a look at this. Bodine's running low. They're almost 3 abreast. There's Bodine as he taps Hillen.
Bobby Hillen, and Hillen has no choice but go around. And Jeff Bodine has to back off the gas, and Ernie Irvin goes by on the outside. Boy, Hillen did a great job. If he had backed that car up the racetrack, it would have been a big-time crash.
Boy, he kept her down, though. Good piece of driving. Bobby Hillen's to be complimented.
The boy's come a long ways in motor racing. I think he's going to be a good comer.
3 laps to go. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Remember we told you about Walter Maynard, alias Bud Moore, the man who played for Patton, worked for General Patton back in World War II? Well, he has told his driver, Morgan Shepherd, make that car seem like it is 30 feet wide. Earnhardt's behind you, and where it says Motorcraft, make him think that's 30 feet wide across the rear of that T-Bird. Don't let him by.
Green flag this time.
I suspect Shepherd can do that.
Now, Shepherd won't lay back this time on the start. Look at him in reference to Alan Kowicki. He's gonna kind of try to fudge just a little bit. Boy, this is go for broke now.
So all eyes will be on 15 and 3. 11's in there as well. As the pace picks up, pace car is off. 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go in this race. Green flag is out. Can Shepherd hold on? They stay above Kowicki. Shepherd tries to get around him. Earnhardt sees the opening on the inside and forges his way past. Earnhardt picks up the lead. Shepherd drops into second place. They split Alan Kowicki as they came off of 2. Earnhardt now has the lead of the race. Shepherd closes down, though. Shepherd's not going to give this one up.
Fabulous move, Paul. Good gamble.
White flag will come out to Dale Earnhardt as they come around. He's on the home stretch now. He sees the white flag, pulls away a little bit from Shepherd. On to the final lap. Can Earnhardt hold on? Can Shepherd hold on to his position? Earnhardt out in front. They come to the backstretch. The final mile is 500. Earnhardt was here in Daytona. It didn't work. Will it work today? He works his way through 3 on to turn 4. The Chevrolet of Dale Earnhardt now begins to wind up for the final time. And Earnhardt picks up the checkered flag as everybody scrambles in a battle across the line to finish this race. But it's Earnhardt that makes the difference as he comes home the winner. Wow! Wow!
What a move he did make up in turns 1 and 2, didn't he, Bobby?
Boy, that was a gamble, Benny. I'm telling you, he just said to himself, hey, it's the only gamble I had. He went right for the bottom, cut across, and he just got enough help from Kowicki to get the win.
Boy, oh boy.
So Dale Earnhardt picks up the win. He gets past Morgan Shepherd's Ford on the first corner of the last lap as Shepherd goes high. They split around another car. Earnhardt saw the opening low, ducked in, took it, picked up the lead, and picked up the win.
There's a happy guy.
I bet it is.
Just did a fabulous job.
Let's go back and take a look at that on the final lap. As they came across the line, now watch Earnhardt. That Shepherd up on the high side of the 7-car of Kowicki.
Was that unbelievable, Bobby? What a move he made. Just turned the car dead left.
And Benny, you know darn good and well that Morgan Shepherd really thought that he had him blocked because Kowicki was on the left, and so Morgan Shepherd was probably just a little bit reserved.
Here was the fight for second coming across the line.
They get together. The 25 car of Ken Schrader, the 6 car of Mark Martin get together. But Martin, I think, did he beat him, Greg, or not?
That was close. I'm not even going to pick that one, Benny.
We're going to have to send Jerry Punch over to check on a couple of these positions. Dale Earnhardt wins the Atlanta 500. We'll be back. Take a look. We'll return.
Then, you know, when we start back on the last lap, just way down
Well, it's unofficial right now, but they're still doing some sorting. Here's the way it looks. Earnhardt wins, followed by Shepard, Irvin, Kenny Schrader, Mark Martin. In 6th place is Kyle Petty, Jeff Bodine, Alan Kwiecki, Harry Gant, Sterling Marlin. A great race at the finish. You would have thought that it would have been dominated by Earnhardt, and then that seemed up in the air, but still he's in winner's circle and with Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, he is trying to get his breath a little bit here. He's quite hot and got some cold fluids in him a minute ago, and they got an oxygen mask over to him. Dale, first of all, you look a little puny. How you feel?
Well, I've been sick on my stomach for about halfway of the race there. I got feeling pretty bad one time, and I was worried. I was thinking about asking for some relief at one time, but I kept fighting it, and this old Chevrolet, this Goodwrench Chevrolet came through. Our good luck charm worked good again today here in Atlanta. Stroh Soother from up in Richmond, along with his good luck charm and from the Special Olympics, and it pulled us through. Everybody worked hard today. I thought I got by Bo down there, even we hadn't had a caution, and then we had those 2 cautions. I got worried about having time to restart, so I like to tell everybody back home hi, and thank the good Lord for a good race. We did good today.
Dale, that final pass with a couple laps to go, when the caution came out, did you think you were going to have any trouble getting by Morgan Shepherd?
Well, I didn't know really. I just knew I was going to have to do something, and they opened up a pretty good hole on the bottom, so I just went for it. I just want to see this thing would stick down there, and we got by out there, and it was no contest then. It's just smooth sailing then.
We talked about the disappointment at Daytona after what happened down there. You said, hey, we went back and had a cookout with some friends and went out and went shrimping that night and had some good shrimp. What will you do tonight?
Oh, probably going to go to bed bad as I feel. Just be looking forward to getting home and getting to bed.
Dale Earnhardt, again, a great run here at Atlanta, winning the Motorcraft 500 on a great move inside of Morgan Shepherd with a couple laps to go. Let's go to Gary Gerald standing by in the garage area. Gary?
Thank you, Jerry. Alongside here as the cars come in to go through tech is Morgan Shepherd. Morgan, if I can turn you toward this camera, I know there's got to be bitter disappointment. You won here 4 years ago on 86, and you're so close today. You gambled on that last stop with the yellow. You stayed out, and I know that you figured there was going to be a challenge, but I'm sure you were hoping for a different result.
Well, we knew about how fast you could go on fresh tires. You could run about 32.40, 32.50, and we was running about 32.70, 32.80 on our used tires there. And with just a few laps to go, I felt like we had a chance of holding them off the last few laps.
You had a problem that produced some heating, some overheating throughout the late stages of the race.
Yes, we blew a head gasket on our engine there, and it kept running hot, and we was kind of holding back. And on the restarts there, the engine was kind of down on horsepower. We couldn't pull off with it because it was running around 250 degrees.
I know you were not happy with Alan Kwiecki in that late race incident.
No, that was the last lap. He was a lap car down on the inside. He should have let it, me and Dale have it out, but he run down in the corner side by side with me and shoved me up the track, and then of course Dale shot under him and made it easy for him.
I know perhaps it's easy for us to speculate and look ahead, tougher for you, but this bodes well. I mean, you've proved this a competitive team. You're going to be heard from before this season's over with.
Well, we're starting to gain strength now. We're starting to get our Ford Thunderbirds in a lot more competitive situation. I feel like we're going to get stronger as the season goes. I'm just thrilled to death to be with the Motorcraft Thunderbird.
All right, well, we congratulate you on second. I know it's disappointing it wasn't in the winner's circle. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
Let's go back to Paul Page.
Keeps him solid in the points as well, because Earnhardt now leads Morgan Shepherd by just 58 points. So you got a good points fight going at the conclusion of race number 4. Earnhardt unofficially the winner, followed by Morgan Shepherd. We'll have more right after this. Still unofficial, Dale Earnhardt wins the Atlanta 500, followed by Morgan Shepherd. The win determined on the last lap. Now let's get an update on the baseball negotiations. Let's go to Roger Twyble. This report from New York.
Thank you very much.
Hope continues to ride on those talks. Dale Earnhardt at the top of the unofficial order. Morgan Shepherd in second. With his best finish ever, Ernie Irvan sits in third place. Let's talk with him now. Here's Gary Gerald.
Well, Paul, the motto for this team this weekend was go get 'em Earn. And in his first ride on that number 4 car, what a drive. From 30th to 3rd. Congratulations on your best ever Winston Cup finish.
I tell you what, I owe it all to the guys on the crew and the guy that builds the motor, Runt, and all the guys at the shop did a hell of a job. That was an awful good run for us. And, I owe it all to them because I just drove my normal race, and that car made me that far up.
Now, was this a show-me opportunity? Do you think you've earned yourself a spot in this car for future races?
Well, we discussed it before the race, and, you know, he just wanted me to go out and do the best job I could, and he knew what kind of job I'd done in the cars I was in before, so he knew if I did that type of job in this type of car that we'd be a front runner, and that's the way it turned out.
What kind of a view did you have for all the late race dramatics there with cars spinning and a couple of late race yellows that bunched everybody up?
Well, I was right on the outside of Hillen when Jeff tapped him a little bit, and then you know, I was tied up right there with Mark Martin and Morgan and Kenny and all us, and Dale got away, you know, and we had an awful good run though.
Well, from the short tracks of Central California to the super speedways of the South, congratulations on your best ever. We wish you continued success in Darlington in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right, Ernie Irvin, a third place finisher. Jeff Bodine, of course, very much a story today, and right now Dr. Jerry Punch is with him.
Well, actually, I'm with the Bodine family. This is Jeff Bodine, of course, having part of the uniform untied, and Kathy Bodine, his wife, behind him, and his son, Barry. And Jeffrey, you had a great day going today. You looked like you were going to have a good shot at the win, and then looked like you took one road and Earnhardt took another with a few laps to go. What happened?
Those last lap restarts are tough, and we just ran out of room. Yeah, I went low and underneath a slower car, and Dale went outside of him, and the slower car chose to pinch me down, and we ended up bumping. He spun out, and that messed us up. That took some laps away from that last short run at the end. And then when we restarted again, another traffic jam. The slower cars got side by side in front of me. They showed no courtesy at all to the lead lap cars at the end of the race. And normally that's what everyone does. You know, we're not complaining, but we're very excited about our run. It was very good. It's only our fourth race with Junior Johnson, Ford, Budweiser. I thought we did great. You know, all you Jeff Bodine fans, Budweiser, Ford, Junior Johnson fans, watch out. It's going to be a good year for us.
If you hadn't had the traffic problem, Junior Johnson and Tim Brewer both felt pretty comfortable. You were able to run with at least Morgan, and May had a shot at Earnhardt.
Well, yeah, we didn't need that last caution, that's for sure. Someone blew an engine. It didn't look like there was any oil out, but they threw the yellow just for safety. And boy, we didn't need it. It bunched everybody up. We got in for a pit stop, got behind a few cars, and that traffic jam at the end was kind of like driving through New York City at rush hour. Just was no place to go.
Now, what Jeff Bodine had done prior to the day is promised wife Kathy back here that this would be a birthday present win for her. He didn't quite come through, so he'll possibly have to make up for it in a few weeks at Darlington. Paul?
Well, some concern, if not controversy, at the finish of the Atlanta 500. Coming up next, an ABC Sports favorite returns. Host Kurt Gowdy, along with former NFL great Walter Payton and Olympic gold medalist Matt Biondi, in a one-hour outdoor special. The American Sportsman, next here on ABC Sports. Atlanta 500 is done. Dale Earnhardt is the winner, but there's still conversations to be held. We'll be back. We're back at Atlanta International Raceway, and the race has been run 500 hard-fought miles, and it's official now. Dale Earnhardt is the winner of the race, followed by Morgan Shepherd, Ernie Irvin, Ken Schrader, Mark Martin. We take a look at the official order of finish now. And let's go down and talk with Kenny Schrader. He's with Gary Gerald.
Paul, you acknowledged earlier today that this is one of the most versatile drivers around. He was kind of bemoaning the fact that with the rain he was missing opportunities to be racing elsewhere, but as it turns out today, a lot of excitement in the final couple of laps here at Atlanta. And you've got to be tired because it's never before does anybody run so many green flag laps at this place.
Well, we don't you know, we're a little tired. We could go run a midget race or something tonight still, though. But, you know, our little Kodiak car ran awful good there. At the end, we didn't know whether to pit or not. And it's pretty hard to not do what Junior and the 11 car and the 3 car did. We came in with them, and, you know, I guess we lost one spot in the pits getting blocked, and we got a couple at the end, so I think we wound up 4th, and we run 3rd to 5th all day, so I guess we finished about where we belong.
When you came across the finish line, it looked as if you may have been literally pushing the 4 car of Ernie Irvin across in that battle for position.
I wasn't really pushing him. I actually hit him as hard as I could because I was racing the 6 and the 6 was beside me, and I had a little bit of run on Ernie, so I figured as long as I hit him square it wouldn't hurt anything, so I hit him as hard as I could, and it got us 4th.
We talked a little bit about the physical fatigue of all the green flag laps. One advantage, you run so quick you didn't have to worry about a setting sun here at Atlanta. That's a little unusual.
Well, it really is. Usually at turn 3 when the windshield gets pitted up net and the sun starts to go, it really gets hard to see down there, but you know, today with so many green laps, I guess we only run like 14 yellow laps or something like that, so it was not a factor. We ran almost, as sure it's the fastest race in AIR history.
Well, you've got yourself in a good position. You mentioned how consistent you were. You go to Darlington in a couple of weeks. Looks like the team is stabilizing, getting ready now to make a pretty good push as you really get into full stride in 1990.
Well, Daytona really hurt us. You know, we left there, we were playing fast enough, but we left there 40th in points. And then we had a 10th and a 3rd and now a 4th. And I tell you what, we got to attribute a major part of it to Frank Edwards, who's been with Hendricks Motorsports for a number of years. And he's our chassis man this year, and he's really got the car working good.
Now tell us truthfully, you got any racing going on tonight? You couldn't be.
I could be, but I don't have it. There's no place racing, but I could be real easy.
All right, Kenny Schrader, he's happy in the number 4 spot as we check in again with Jerry Punch.
Well, you know, we talked earlier about having possibly a photo finish. Well, indeed, we had a photo finish here for 4th spot. Now, let's show you what happened. We'll see Earnhardt come across here in the video camera with Timmy Arp. Here's Earnhardt coming by. We split these pictures to get a half frame for time reference. Earnhardt has won the race. Looking for Morgan Shepherd to come by now. Morgan Shepherd is coming by. Here's the 15 car for Shepherd. He finishes in 2nd spot. And here comes the car number 4. Now, this is the battle for 4th spot. Mark Martin, the car number 6 on the inside. Schrader on the outside. They're side by side. And here's the start-finish line right across here. You will take a look at about 3 inches Schrader's nose on the Chevrolet Lumina in front of the Ford of Mark Martin. 3 inches separating here in the video camera, the 4th and 5th spot. It's visibly easy to see, and that's what NASCAR just did. Came down here and talked with Timmy Arp and looked at the replay here and said, yep, Schrader finished 4th and Martin is 5th.
I bet they're glad that they had it today. Glad they had that system there. All right, coming up next is the American Sportsman. ABC, that old favorite with Kurt Gowdy, returns. That should be a fine program as well. Let's take a look at the official finish here. It is now official. NASCAR posted it just a few moments ago with Earnhardt out in front, followed by Shepherd, Ernie Irvan, Ken Schrader, and Mark Martin rounding off the top 5. Kyle Petty comes home in 6th. Then Jeff Bodine, Alan Kulwicki, Harry Gant, Sterling Marlin finishes in 10th place. 11th is Brett Bodine. Then Bill Elliott, not a great day for Bill. Davey Allison, Dick Trickle, and Bobby Hillen. Bobby Hillen with that 1 spin in the race, the only real incident. Rick Wilson in 16th, Jimmy Spencer, Neil Bonnet, Chad Little, Butch Miller comes down in 20th. Then Buddy Baker trying to make a comeback, and the fact that he stayed in the car today, I think is a credit to him. Dave Marcus, Mike Alexander, Rusty Wallace, and Richard Petty in 25th position. Then Darrell Waltrip, and a good day for another big name and the defending champion here. Ricky Rudd, Mark Stahl, Derek Cope, the Daytona 500 winner in 29, Pennington, then Jimmy Means, H.B. Bailey, Rob Moroso, Larry Pearson. We look down now through the final position. Terry Labonte, who had his engine blow on lap number 6. We'll be back with more from Atlanta International right after these messages.
There's a motor oil that says it's engineered for today's smaller cars, like sports cars. But is that motor oil the first choice?
With a further update on the baseball negotiations.
Well, thank you, Paul. We're still outside.
We'll continue to keep an eye on that. Look at the race summary here. The average speed shattered. Benny Parsons' record is gone by 11 miles an hour as Dale Earnhardt picks up the win here in the Atlanta 500. I'll be back to talk with Bobby and Benny and take a look at the lap that made the difference right after this. But still, it's the Atlanta 500. It is the topic of conversation here. What an incredible finish. You would have thought Dale Earnhardt owned the race, and then it looked like he didn't, and then on that final yellow flag, it set up the situation that actually made the difference as Morgan Shepherd looked like he was on his way to a win in the Atlanta 500. Now take a look, Benny Parsons. Al Kulwicki is sitting in front of both of them.
Well, Alan Kulwicki trying to get his lap back on the inside of Morgan Shepherd. He moves Morgan Shepherd up the racetrack, and just like Dale Earnhardt said, he made the car turn dead left, went under both of them, never to be seen again.
And the point is, we take a look at the reaction we're going to see here.
Richard Childress and the crew, oh yeah, they like that. That's Hank Jones.
Well, and it wasn't too bad a deal either.
No, it wasn't,
because that made the difference. Now, there was some comment that maybe Kulwicki should have done something different, but he was racing too.
Well, he was racing with all the cars were a lap down. If he had moved over, it backed off and let all those cars go, all those cars in the lead lap, obviously the guys that racing him for position are going to go by as well. That's one reason that he was up there trying to race with Morgan Shepherd.
Are we seeing a change now in the complexion of NASCAR racing to where the races are even more tactical, where the pits are more in control?
Oh, the pits have always been very, very much in control. But I think that it's still going to be won on the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt won the race on the racetrack today. He passed those guys. They made the decisions. They changed 4 tires with just a couple of laps to go, or 6 or 7 laps to go. They made the decisions in the pits, but yet he won it on the racetrack.
An interesting race considering no qualification, very, very little practice. So, Bobby Unser, you don't have that opportunity. That made this a race driver's race, which may in fact make Dale Earnhardt the top of the breed.
Well, he's good. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever say he's not really one of the best. In stock car racing, that man is really good. I tell you, he didn't have a lot of choices when you looked at the situation. Very much like Benny said, the top groove was blocked to him. Allen was kind of married, or excuse me, Morgan Shepherd was married to what Kluwicki did. So when he went up, hey, there was only one place left to go to try to win the race. And in this business today, as important as it is, it's win or nothing. I'm proud of the guy for doing it, and it really shows us how competitive the stock car racing is today. It's just a wonderful show.
And it continues to be a very unusual season as Dale Earnhardt picks up the win, shatters the track record, and goes into the points lead of the Winston Cup. Dale Earnhardt, the winner at the Atlanta 500. We'll be back with more right after this. We're back. The Atlanta 500, it's run. Earnhardt, the winner, but maybe a big winner too, Ernie Irvan. Larry McClure has decided to sign him up for the rest of the season as a result of this fantastic third-place finish today. But Dale Earnhardt, well, he comes home the winner. The executive producer of ABC Sports is Jeffrey Mason. The Atlanta 500 was produced by Joel Feld, directed by Bob Goodrich. Technical director, Richard Ehrenberg. Associate producers, Tony Tortorisi and Debbie Cole. Associate directors, Vince D'Addario and Bruce Clark. The winner of today's Atlanta 500, Dale Earnhardt. For Bobby Unser, Benny Parsons, Gary Gerald, and Dr. Jerry Punch, I'm Paul Page. Congratulations to Dale Earnhardt, and so long from Atlanta International Raceway.
Coming up next, join host Kurt Gowdy with NFL great Walter Payton and Olympic gold medalist Matt Biondi for a special edition of The American Sportsman. Next on ABC Sports. The Atlanta 500 has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Goodyear Eagle Radials, the best-selling performance radials in the world. By new Head & Shoulders Dry Scalp Shampoo. Helps protect your scalp's natural moisture balance. And by the U.S. Navy. You and the Navy, full speed ahead. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.
A promotional fee has been paid to ABC by United Airlines, rededicated to giving you the service you deserve. Come
Fitness Center. Fitness with a professional approach.
They were